Story 1. Am I the jerk for not wanting to warn my pregnant sister-in-law that her husband might leave her if she doesn't change her behavior because I want her to learn a lesson? Sil wanted me to pay for her expensive anniversary party, so I canceled it. Then my email said I was jealous of her. Hey guys, about 3 weeks ago, my sister-in-law, Addison, 26F, asked me to help her plan and organize her first wedding anniversary party. I'm 30F, an event planner by profession, and I usually charge for my services, but for her, I decided to do it for free because she is family. Now, I've known her for the past 5 years since that's how long my husband, 30M, and I have been together. We've been married for 2 years now, and I got along well enough with his family so far. But this one incident has literally changed everything since it seems like his entire family is against me right now. So, when Addison approached me to help her plan the party, I obviously assumed that she was going to pay for everything, or maybe her husband would. But at no point had we discussed my involvement in any of this. I had already canceled my personal charges for her. I was not about to go out of my way to help her out. And she was throwing quite an extravagant and lavish party as well, so it was bound to be quite expensive. That's why the people that I was dealing with for food and decor needed a certain amount of money upfront as a deposit. When I spoke to Addison about it, she kept telling me that she would pay me all of it after the party in one go, and I had no reason to doubt her because we had had a good relationship so far. Both she and her husband were working individuals, so I didn't think there was anything wrong. However, around 3 days back, the night before the party, she told me that she actually expected me to cover all the expenses, and that's why she hadn't paid me anything so far. I had calculated everything and called her up to let her know how much money she would need to spend, and when I told her, she started acting very dicey. Eventually, she told me that the reason she had been holding out on this for so long was because she actually expected me to pay it. I was obviously surprised because we hadn't had that discussion at any point, and I asked her why she had assumed that. She said that she knew I made a lot of money and so did her brother, so there was no reason that we couldn't afford to do this for them. I started panicking because everything had been planned, and she was saying this at the very last minute, so I told her that this was absolutely not acceptable. But she said that she and her husband were trying to save money because they were actually pregnant, and she had quit her job already. They were going to use this party as an opportunity to announce their pregnancy as well and expected me to understand where she was coming from because everything was quite expensive, and now that they were only going to be living off of one income, they did not want to spend money unnecessarily. She even suggested that maybe this could be my gift to her, but at that point all I could see was the calculations that I had done, and it just pissed me off that she was acting so entitled. For the record, I have my own business, and yes, I do make a comfortable living. So does my husband. He is a software developer. So Addison was not wrong about the fact that we could definitely afford to do this for them, but I wouldn't say that they are any worse off than us. Addison herself might not have had a very high-paying job. She had been working in marketing at a relatively new firm for the past couple of years, but her husband, 28M, made up for it since he is a pretty good tax expert. Addison had a desk job. She wasn't even showing up yet, so she had no reason to quit her job so early. Whether they feel that they can afford this party or not is not my business because they can totally choose to start saving money right now, but that doesn't make them entitled to mine. So, after arguing with Addison for a bit, I just hung up because it was pointless since she had pretty much made up her mind that all the expenses were going to be covered by me, and she was relentlessly trying to convince me that this made total sense. I was very frustrated, and I told her brother, my husband, about what was going on. He was equally pissed off and even tried to call her up and speak to her, but she was being incredibly stubborn and refused to back down, saying that we were rich enough to afford this and that she couldn't believe we were being so stingy. So, after a while, I made a very difficult choice and canceled everything. I had to make some calls, and everyone was really upset because the cancellation was taking place at the very last minute, and of course it was quite inconvenient for them as well. So I had to come up with some lie about how the person that we were throwing a party for had fallen very sick at the very last minute, just so I wouldn't piss off the vendors since I deal with these people quite frequently due to my profession. So, not only had Addison caused me a lot of trouble in my personal life, she also would have made quite a mess in my professional life if I hadn't lied about why we had to cancel the party. Anyway, I believe that after the way she had acted with us, I had no reason to look out for her. So, I prepared an invoice and emailed it to her with all the money that she owed me. I had promised the vendors and the owners of the venue that they would get all the money that they were owed, since they would definitely be demanding the full price of everything, even though the event had been cancelled, since the cancellation had taken place at the very last minute. And I even added my charges because clearly Addison had been planning to use me and my resources, and she had taken me for granted. She was trying to act smart with me, so I decided that I was going to teach her a lesson, and I don't think that I did anything wrong. But when I sent her that email saying that I had cancelled everything and this was what she owed me, people seemed to have lost their minds. Addison herself was quite upset, and she called me several times after that email, but I did not pick up any of her calls. And she kept trying to text me, trying to tell me that I just couldn't do this to her. But I already had done it, so I just blocked her. After I blocked her, I started receiving phone calls and messages from my in-laws. That was quite surprising because my in-laws and I have always gotten along well, and this is pretty much the first time that we have been in such a serious fight. Anyway, I was really shocked that they were on her side because she was obviously so wrong. She had no right to expect me to pay for all of this, especially when it was all so expensive. Besides, she hadn't even spoken to me about it before this, and had dropped a bombshell on me at the very last minute. So I had every right to be pissed off and cancel everything. I tried to explain that to my in-laws, but they also insisted that my husband and I were the ones being stingy and miserable in this case. Apparently, just because we make a lot of money, that makes the family entitled to whatever we have when they need it. I don't even know how that makes sense, but apparently to them it does. Even by their logic, I'm pretty sure that Addison and her husband don't really need our financial help right now. They are not doing very badly in life, and the only reason that they don't want to pay for the party is because they are the ones being stingy, not us. We were just arguing about this because I really wanted my in-laws to see my point, and I don't really give up on relationships that easily, but after what they said, I don't think I can ever go back to having a good relationship with them. All of a sudden, while arguing, my in-laws started telling me that the only reason I had canceled everything without even speaking to anyone was because I was jealous of their daughter and I wanted to sabotage her party on purpose. I had no idea where that came from, and I was very blindsided, so I wasn't able to say anything in my defense, and they continued to talk absolute crap. They thought that I was just jealous that she was pregnant and I was not, even though I had been married for longer than her, and that's why when I found out that she was going to announce her pregnancy at the party, I got pissed off and decided to sabotage the event. None of that was true at all, and it was quite insulting that they had even suggested something like this, so I did not even bother to argue after that because the discussion had been taken to such a nasty level. I hung up on them and blocked them as well. After blocking them, I spoke to my husband, and I completely broke down because I really hate fighting with my loved ones, and I actually had considered my in-laws as my family. So, I was very upset that this was happening, and even more so that they were treating me like this over something so petty. I even spoke to my parents, and they comforted me on the phone and reassured me that I hadn't done anything or demanded anything that was out of bounds. That made me feel slightly better, and I was able to go to sleep at almost 3 o'clock in the morning that day. The next day onwards, it was business as usual because I couldn't exactly skip work just because I was feeling bad. I had sent Addison the invoice, but now it depended on her when she would send the money, and only then would I be able to pay everybody off. I was just hoping and praying that she sent the money soon enough because I didn't want to keep everybody waiting for long since my reputation was at stake here. Around the evening, at the same time that the party was supposed to be held, I received a call from my brother-in-law. I picked up because I wanted to know what he had to say about the situation since so far we had only had good interactions, and he had come off as a generally level-headed person. I'm really thankful that when he called me, he was the only person who actually apologized for what was happening. He told me that he had no idea that Addison had been planning to demand that I cover the expenses of the party, and if he had known, he would have put an end to it. He told me that he still did not know why she had done any of this, but he wanted to take the fall for it, apologize, and pay the money that I was owed. I won't lie, it was a huge relief for me when he sent me the money so I could pay everybody off. I thanked him for being reasonable, and it was then that he told me in confidence that this incident was not the first time that Addison had acted really entitled, and for the past couple of weeks she had been having problems with almost everyone. He sounded really exhausted from having to deal with Addison, and I don't even blame him. I tried to comfort him and tell him that everything would be fine, but he said that if everything did not turn out fine, he might have to take some measures and it wouldn't be good for the family. I was shocked because even though Addison and her husband have been married for just 1 year, they have been together for a lot longer. They have been together since their first year of college, and they got married late because both of them wanted to establish themselves in their careers first. So, for him to even imply that he was thinking about leaving Addison because of her behavior, it was a huge deal. When I got back home, I told my husband everything, and even he was quite shocked. He was then about to call Addison up and talk to her about it so he could warn her and she could maybe change her behavior, and this is where the problem really started because I did not want him to do that. Personally, I believe that if she is being difficult to deal with, not just with me but with everyone else as well, then her husband is well within his rights to leave her regardless of the fact that she's pregnant. It doesn't give her a license to be nasty to everyone. And more importantly, she should realize that this kind of behavior is not fine by herself. I don't think that we need to interfere or even tell her about any of this because not only is it likely to cause more trouble in their marriage, I think it's just not necessary. She hasn't even apologized for anything. Neither have my in-laws, so we don't owe it to her to help her out here. If she knows what's good for her, she'll be able to save her own marriage and do it without our help. And after the way his family has treated me, I really just don't want anything to do with them at the moment. I know for a fact that if my husband calls her up to warn her and get her to fix her behavior, they are going to somehow drag me into this because that's how they got this information and make me the scapegoat. But my husband thinks that I'm being too harsh on his family and that no matter what has happened, we should still tell Addison what her husband said so she can at least try to change herself or at least talk to him. And I don't think it's our place to say anything, and more importantly, I don't want to say anything because I want her to learn a lesson. That she can't just treat people however she wants and expect to get away with it. This is what my husband and I have been arguing about for the past couple of days, and I'm not sure if I'm in the right here anymore or not now. So, AITA for not wanting to warn my pregnant sister-in-law that her husband might leave her if she doesn't change her behavior because I want her to learn a lesson? Update 1. First of all, thank you so much for all the comments. My husband and I have finally been able to come to a common conclusion. Finally, we had been fighting about this for the past couple of days, and it was really getting in the way of our relationship and our marriage, and we did not want to end up like Addison and her husband, so we decided to talk it out. I was feeling very hurt and upset by the way his family had treated me, and he acknowledged the fact that what they had done was completely unfair, especially the things that his parents had said about me, like I was jealous of Addison and I was insecure, which is why I was going out of my way to sabotage her party and stuff. It was simply untrue, and of course I was hurt because I had had a good relationship with them so far. So for them to turn the tables so quickly, it was just unexpected, and that's why I had taken this so hard. But he explained to me that Addison was still his sister, no matter how she had behaved, and he would never be able to forgive himself if he knowingly did not prevent her marriage from being ruined, especially when she was pregnant. And I guess I can understand where he's coming from because even I have my siblings, and I decided to put myself in his shoes and think about it for a while, and I guess I would have done the same for my siblings, too. So, I told him that he could speak to Addison if he wanted to, but I wasn't saying a word. He told me the most important reason that he wanted to save their marriage was that she was expecting, and he had always known that she had a tendency to act out, but if it reached a level even her husband could not tolerate it anymore, she needed to be told. If she's never told, she will never be able to change. I tried to point out that both of us had tried to tell her that her behavior was not okay on the day that she decided to tell me that she wanted me to pay for the party, but I guess that was different since we were all yelling at each other, and it was more of an argument rather than us trying to explain our point to each other calmly. My husband told me that this time he's going to speak to her one-on-one and try to have a real heartfelt conversation because he thinks that's what is needed here. And if even that does not work, and she still feels like she does not need to fix anything about herself, then she's on her own. But right now, it's worth a try to at least attempt to save her marriage for her sake. That being said, we are still not going to speak to my in-laws. My husband told me that with his sister, he at least has an incentive to speak to her because he really thinks that he can salvage the situation, but with my in-laws, there is no speaking to them until they acknowledge their mistake and apologize for the way they spoke to me, and that's something that both of us agree with, so there's no argument regarding it. And regarding Addison and what exactly she has been up to, we don't really know. Many people had been asking me exactly what had she done that had pissed her husband off so much that he was actually considering leaving her over it. Truth be told, on the phone call where he had apologized to me, he had only told me that she was being difficult and implied that he was going to leave if she did not change, but I had a lot on my mind that day, so I did not probe further and ask more questions. I just assumed that they might have been having problems in their marriage that he did not want to share, and if he had wanted to share it, he would have done so already without me needing to prompt him. Basically, I did not want to pry, so I did not ask. I'm guessing that she tried to pull off similar stunts with other people as well, which is probably very embarrassing for him. Anyway, we are going to find out because this evening my husband is going to visit Addison and talk to her. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do hope that they are able to sort things out, because my husband and Addison have always been very close, and I know that he really values his family. So, staying away from them and not speaking to them has been very difficult for him. I try to think of a life where I'm not speaking to my parents or my siblings, and it's literally unimaginable. So, I know the past couple of days have been really hard for him, and I do hope that my in-laws come to their senses and apologize to me. Not for my sake, but for their own son, because I also know for a fact that if it comes to me, he's not going to hesitate to cut them off forever if the need arises. Even with Addison, he probably would not have spoken to her and tried to fix the situation had it not been for what her husband had said to me about wanting to leave her. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'm just going to wait and watch. Update 2. So, my husband just came back from Addison's house about an hour ago, and here's where the situation is at. Apparently, when he showed up, both of them were at home. He had spoken to Addison beforehand, and she had told him that her husband was flying out for a business trip today, but apparently that got postponed, and she forgot to inform him. But since he was there, he decided that he was not going to leave without speaking to her. I guess her husband had also figured out what exactly he was here to talk to her about, so instead of leaving the room, he decided to actively be part of the conversation. My husband told me that Addison was quite blindsided when she actually found out what he was here to talk to her about, because she had assumed that he was going to apologize to her for yelling at her on the phone the other day because of our fight. And when he told her what her husband had said to me, she immediately started freaking out on him, and the two of them had to get her to calm down before they could continue with the discussion. While Addison and her husband were talking, my husband was able to figure out why exactly he had been so pissed, and I guess it was completely natural for him to be angry. I would have been too if I was in his place. So, apparently, I was right about her having tried to pull off such an entitled act with other people as well, and that's why their entire circle of friends has ostracized them now, which can definitely be upsetting. A few weeks ago, she had gone out to lunch with a couple of their friends, but her husband had not since he was busy with work that particular day. However, instead of paying for her share, she insisted that everyone else cover for her because she had to save for the future. They did not want to create a scene at the restaurant, so her friends quietly covered for her, but then later on, when she sent invitations to the anniversary party, even then she told her friends that they had to contribute to the party as well, and she was planning on asking her family members to do so. I guess that was the last straw for them, and they declined their invitations without even offering any explanation. When her husband found out about what she had said, he flipped out on her, and they ended up fighting. So when she invited the rest of her relatives, she did not ask them to contribute to the expenses because by then she had a different plan in mind, namely me. Things had already been very strained between Addison and her husband, and her fight with me just made everything worse. And on the day that we were speaking on the phone, they had had a fight yet again because Addison did not want him to pay me off or apologize to me, at least not so soon. Her husband did not want this to get dragged out because it was quite an embarrassing situation for him. So he just couldn't hold back and ended up saying the thing about wanting to leave her because of her behavior. Addison ended up having a total meltdown because she couldn't believe that he would say such a thing in spite of being with her for so long. Her husband tried to comfort her, but he also maintained his point and said that he had not said anything that he regretted because of the way that she had been acting for the past couple of days. It was just ridiculous and unacceptable. He said he was still willing to give their relationship a chance, and he had actually been planning on discussing this with her once he came back from his business trip, but because my husband had decided to visit them, he had figured out what the purpose of that visit was and believed that now was the right time to have this discussion because now, since her brother was here, maybe he could also help her understand where she was going wrong. At first, she just got crying and was not receptive to what they were saying at all, but once she had calmed down and stopped crying, she explained that she was really nervous about becoming a mother, and she had made a lot of rush decisions because she just did not feel prepared enough. So instead of preparing herself mentally, she decided that she was going to save all the money that she could and try to at least prepare herself financially. Clearly, She was quite distressed and was going through something. My husband's family has never had issues with money, so I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why this was the one thing that she was fixating on, but at least she acknowledged the fact that she was acting out. There are still a lot of unanswered questions, but from what I know, my husband and my brother-in-law were able to speak to Addison and get her to acknowledge that the way she had behaved was not fine. She said that she was going to apologize to everyone and hope that we would accept her apology. I don't know about her friends, but I definitely will accept her apology. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go back to speaking to her, but clearly she is struggling mentally, and I don't want to add to her troubles. So, when her apology comes through, I'm just going to accept it but still maintain a distance from her. As of now, my husband told me that Addison and her husband are going to try couples counseling, and she's going to speak to a professional about her mental health because obviously something has gone very wrong here. She has made a lot of irrational and crazy decisions in the recent past, and to prevent that from happening as her pregnancy progresses, it's necessary for her to speak to a professional. At this point, I really just hope that she gets better and that she has a healthy and safe pregnancy. Update 3. Hey everyone. So, it has been 3 months since my last update, and I'm still very much maintaining a distance from my in-laws. I have had absolutely no contact with my mother-in-law or my father-in-law, but I am keeping in touch with Addison just to be civil. My in-laws never bothered to apologize to me after all the horrible things that they said, and they even cut my husband off for taking my side. A couple of weeks after my last update, they sent him an email saying that they were really disappointed in him because he had chosen me over his own family. They called me cold-hearted and said that my behavior had proven that I would never be a family woman and my career and business would always come first. So, I guess the past couple of years that they had behaved so nicely with me was all just a facade. It hurts that they had been pretending to be nice to me for so long. But whatever, it's not my loss. I'm sure that they will come crawling back when I get pregnant, but that's up to me to decide. As for Addison, things are going well with her pregnancy, and ever since she got the help that she definitely needed, she has been doing better. She and her husband were able to work through their differences, and from what I have heard from my husband, she's back to normal now. She apologized to me a couple of days after the intervention and said that the way she had behaved with me came from a really dark place, and she was going to seek help. I wished her the best, and that was it. We did not speak for a couple of weeks after that. We started speaking to each other once again just 2 weeks ago when she texted me to let me know that she was doing better now and that she would really love to rebuild the relationship that we had. She said that she knew she was the one who had ruined everything between us, but she genuinely valued the bond that we had and would love to work on it. I told her that I would think about it, and initially I was a bit skeptical, but she was really respectful of my boundaries, so we started speaking again. This time, I really hope that it sticks because she has always been a pleasant person other than that one incident. But anyway, that's how things have worked out, and I'm pretty happy with how the situation is right now. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Best friend since high school uninvited me from her wedding last minute. Now she's guilt-tripping me to pay for her honeymoon because they're broke. Okay, so here's the deal. My friend, let's call her Sarah, and I have been tight since high school. We've been through everything together, breakups, makeups, you name it. So when she got engaged, I was over the moon for her. Fast forward to a few months before the wedding. Sarah sends out the invitations and I'm psyched to RSVP. But then, out of nowhere, she texts me saying that she's had to cut down the guest list due to budget constraints, and unfortunately, I didn't make the cut. I was devastated. I get that weddings are expensive and all, but to uninvite me after we've been friends for so long? Ouch. Fast forward again to the wedding day. I see all these photos on social media, and it looks like a fairy tale. But here's the kicker. Sarah texts me later that week asking for money to help cover the cost of the wedding. Apparently, they went over budget, and she's asking all the guests who didn't attend to chip in. I was floored. Not only did she uninvite me, but now she expects me to foot the bill for a wedding I didn't even get to go to. I told her no way. I refused to pay a single dime, but now she's saying I'm being selfish and unsupportive. Am I the a-hole here, Reddit? Or is Sarah out of line for expecting me to pay for her mistake? More context. This happened about a week ago, and I tried talking to her about it again. She relented that the two have been having financial struggles, and this time she respected me not wanting to pay for her wedding. However, she still wants me to consider helping out in other ways, like pitching in for the honeymoon or contributing to future expenses. I appreciate that she's acknowledging her financial difficulties, but it still feels like she's trying to guilt-trip me into footing the bill for her wedding in some form or another. I'm torn because on one hand, I want to be supportive and help her out during a tough time, but on the other hand, I can't shake off the feeling that I'm being taken advantage of. I'm not sure how to proceed from here. Should I continue to stand my ground and refuse any further financial involvement, or should I try to find a compromise that works for both of us? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Comments. Comment 1. No, you're not a hole. Asking for money, especially from people who didn't get invited, is one of the most absurd things I've ever heard in my entire life. Comment 2. It's even worse. OP was invited, then got cut, then Googled at the wedding photos on social media, and then got hit up for money. Comment 3. Uninvited for budget constraints, but still went over budget and now asking an uninvited guest to pay to cover the budget that she was uninvited for because of the budget. Skeptical, my head is spinning. The Ed4 we had 22 asking the guests who didn't attend for money. They aren't guests if they didn't attend, lol. She is just begging regular people for money. It takes a very entitled, selfish type of person to even want an extravagant wedding anyway, so it's no surprise she is entitled and selfish. That's for rich people. If you have to budget for it at all, you can't afford it, period. Comment 4. NTA not the a-hole, and I hope you know you are. I would stop this friendship entirely. Send her a few laughing emoticons/gifs and then block her. One of the tackiest things I've ever heard. Comment 5. Thank you for your support and understanding. It's been a roller coaster of emotions dealing with this situation. To add a bit more context, Sarah and I had always been there for each other, so her decision to uninvite me really caught me off guard. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe she was under a lot of stress or pressure to cut costs, but it still hurt nonetheless. I don't want to cut her off, as she helped me through some tough times. Is there anything else I can do in this situation? Comment 6. No problem. I normally don't advise people to troll people, but in this case, I would personally troll her in the most childish of ways with laughing emoticons and memes, not saying you should. Wild guess, but you must also have helped her through tough times, so I'd say you're probably even or more than even. This friendship will never be the same. You will resent her for uninviting you. She will resent you for not paying. I'd focus on making new friends or spending more time with other people. Stop clinging to this fake friendship. Comment 7. I wonder how the other uninvited guests feel about being asked for money. Maybe it's a tradition somewhere, but I think it's tacky AF. Comment 8. Okay, a reality check, please. Who, being an adult and in their right mind, expects other people to pay for their luxuries? Mind you, a wedding, honeymoon, whatever, it is not a necessity. It's a luxury. You have to budget, and if you can't budget, why the hell should other people pay for that? Would she pay for your vacation so you can have some fun because you're tired from work? No. What's the difference? That's just crazy. She shows you zero respect and zero care for your feelings and is just trying to use and guilt-trip you. And she literally threw you out of her wedding and still feels it's okay to ask you for money like you're a doormat. That's just odd behavior. It's very selfish to care about your well-being instead of catering to other people's expensive wants. Yes, you may tell her you're very selfish and you shouldn't be friends. Opie, thank you for your reality check. You're absolutely right. Expecting others to pay for luxuries like weddings and honeymoons is unreasonable, especially when it comes at the expense of someone's feelings and boundaries. It's been a tough pill to swallow, realizing that Sarah may not value our friendship as much as I thought she did. The fact that she uninvited me from her wedding and then tried to guilt-trip me into covering expenses feels like a betrayal of trust. I've come to realize that I need to prioritize my own well-being and not allow myself to be taken advantage of. It's clear that Sarah's behavior is selfish and disrespectful, and I shouldn't feel obligated to cater to her expensive wants at my own expense. It's going to be hard, but I think it's time to reevaluate this friendship and set some boundaries moving forward. Your words have given me the clarity and confidence to stand my ground. Thank you for your support. Update. Hey everyone. OP here with an update about refusing to pay for my friend's wedding because she uninvited me. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude to all 700 plus of you who took the time to read my story and offer your thoughts. Your support and perspectives have been invaluable during this challenging time. Since my last update, there have been some significant developments. Sarah saw the post and confronted me. Things got heated. There was yelling, emotions ran high, and in the end, I made the difficult decision to go no contact with Sarah. While it was a tough choice to make, I realized that the toxicity in our relationship had reached a point where it was no longer healthy for either of us. Despite my initial hopes for reconciliation, it became clear that certain underlying issues in our friendship needed to be addressed and resolved before any meaningful progress could be made. Going no contact was not a decision I made lightly, but rather one born out of necessity for my own well-being and mental health. It's never easy to distance yourself from someone you care about, but sometimes it's necessary for personal growth and healing. I want to thank everyone once again for their support and encouragement throughout this journey. Your words have been a source of strength and comfort during a challenging time in my life. Moving forward, I'm focused on prioritizing self-care and surrounding myself with positive influences. While it's sad to say goodbye to a friendship that once meant so much to me, I'm hopeful that this decision will ultimately lead to greater happiness and fulfillment in the long run. Thank you all for being a part of my story and for your unwavering support. Now for some comments. Comment 1. Sarah saw the post and confronted me. Things got heated. If she was anything but embarrassed about her choosing beggar ways and apologetic for how she treated you, she is no friend. Comment 2. It's so ridiculous when people get angry about being exposed because no real names are used 99% of the time, and no way for the guilty to be rounded up and derided. Comment 3. Narcissists can't stand the idea that anyone would think badly of them, even if it's online and relatively anonymous. Someone might recognize it and know her actions don't reflect kindly on herself. Comment 4. Some of you also had been asking for her contact info, but I don't think that is the mature thing to do. I just want to move past this. Comment 5. Yeah, if you handed that out, you'd be a massive a-hole. Sorry about having to go and see no contact, but seems like it was the only way forward to keep yourself sane. Best of luck. Comment 6. It hurts because she helped me when I was battling depressed and low on money, but thank you for your understanding and support. It wasn't an easy decision to go no contact, but sometimes it's necessary for self-preservation. Your words mean a lot to me, and I appreciate your well wishes. Here's to prioritizing our mental health and moving forward towards a brighter future. Take care. Comment 7. Look, I know you hate giving up on a friendship, but she really isn't much of a friend to you. It's not as much of a loss as you might think. I had to let go of many friendships that were very one-sided because I thought that's what a friend would do. I was very surprised to learn when I let go. The other person didn't seem to care at all, while I was devastated over the loss. Ironically enough, I was at my dad's funeral, sad at all the friends that didn't show up, and I saw a woman I never would have expected to see in a million years. We were never friends. We never got along, but she came. I asked her why privately. She said, "We may not ever have agreed about anything, but this was your dad. I lost mine a few years ago, and I remembered how it hurts, and I wanted to tell you I'm sorry, truly sorry. If you need anything, please call." That's when it hit me. My friend of me was a better friend than my friends. It's been 12 years. She stopped by and checked on my mom several times before she passed away. She came to her funeral, too. She helped my siblings who lived nearer to my parents' home than I find a realtor to sell the house, get help cleaning it out, etc. That is what a friend should be. I never asked her to do those things. She just did them, not because she liked me as a person, but because she was a caring human being that saw a need and stepped in to fill it. If a friend can't do that as a minimum, they are not a true friend. Ask yourself honestly, does Sarah pass that minimum threshold test? If not, let her go. Don't mourn, move on, find better friends. Comment 8. Apparently they went over budget and she's asking all the guests who didn't attend to chip in. I cannot think of a single person I know that would be this classless. Not saying they don't exist, just that I'm grateful that none of them exist in my vicinity. Comment 9. I also cannot imagine someone doing this, but I guess they exist, and I'm just lucky I haven't met one. Seriously, She asked everyone who did not attend to chip in? I can't wrap my head around it. If she asked from the guests who were there, sure, a little tacky, but I can see the logic. But those who were non-guests, why? Comment 10. Someone cheated, and it wasn't the koala. I bet she already asked the people who went and didn't get enough takers. Comment 11. In the most cynical take you can have on wedding receptions, the bride and groom are exchanging money for the food and drink at the reception for large gifts. My wife's aunt and uncle got us a very expensive set of flatware that I still use very cautiously because it's that expensive, and we never would have bought on our own. Plus, people are spending money to come into town as well. They spent money on Sarah, but it's in the form of gifts to start the marriage out. Asking for cash on top of that is just so crass. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Parents asked me to leave my apartment but keep paying rent so my golden child brother could live there for free. I, 22F, have been living in my parents' spare apartment in a condo for the past 3 years while going to college in Massachusetts. My parents, both in their 50s, bought the place as an investment property years ago before they moved to Iowa. Over the years, my strong-headed father kept having issues with every tenant, leaving the place empty for a while. That was until I got admission into Massachusetts Institute of Technology and I had to move up there. My parents figured they'd let me live there and pay cheap rent while I went to school. It was a pretty sweet deal. $1,250 a month for a decent one-bedroom in a college town, utilities included. Sure, it's not a palace, but it's been my little home away from home. Coming from an Amish family, my upbringing was pretty strict, especially for me as a girl. My parents always drilled into me that a woman's place is to serve and support the men in her life, no matter what. I've always struggled with this, wanting to forge my own path but feeling the constant pull of familial duty. Also, my exposure and access to technology was pretty limited in my formative years, so it's quite ironic that I'm now studying computational and systems biology. A bit more backstory on my family. I'm the younger of 2 kids, and it's always been clear that my brother Noah, 27M, is the golden child. He's the smart one, the charismatic one, the one who can do no wrong in mom and dad's eyes, especially dad's. Growing up, he got the best of everything. Clothes, toys, praise, you name it. If we got in a fight, I was always the one who got punished and told to be more accommodating. I remember one time when we were teens, I saved up my allowance for months to buy this beautiful dress. But when Noah decided he wanted to go to some concert in town the same weekend, Dad made me give him the money, saying he would give it back, but he never did. I cried for days, but what could I do? The strict Amish rules just never applied to Noah, and I hated it. I think that was when I started wanting more for myself. Anyways, Noah's been living the high life in the city for the last few years, working at some fancy tech startup in Boston. Even before I moved to Massachusetts, he was so close distance-wise, but he was so far at the same time. He never asked to meet up, and we aren't a call or hug type of siblings, so basically we aren't close. I didn't mind not seeing my brother despite being in the same city. It was a breather for my childhood oppression. But here's the twist. Apparently, Noah's company went belly up months ago, and Noah didn't tell anybody. He hoped he'd bounce back, but it never happened. Now Noah's out of a job and a place to live. Cue the theatrics. My mom called me up last week, all frantic and sniffly, going on about how poor Noah is going through a rough time and needs his family's support. I was expecting her to ask me to let him crash on my couch for a bit until he gets back on his feet. Which, I wasn't thrilled about, but family is family, right? But oh no, my mom had a very different idea. She straight up told me that I need to move out of the house and find my own place. Fine. It's not above them to displace me for their golden child. But here's the kicker. She said I had to keep paying the $1,250 a month rent so that Noah could live there instead. 1, they appreciated the petty income from the house and didn't want to lose it. But at the same time, she didn't want to collect any money from her precious baby. I was floored. I sputtered out something like, "But Mom, I'm still in school. I can't afford to get my own place right now." But she just kept laying on the guilt trip, saying how I needed to do my part for the family and how Noah is going through a tough transition. I felt like I was in the twilight zone. Like, in what world is it okay to kick out your kid who's been paying you rent just to give a free ride to your other kid? I tried to reason with her, saying Noah is a grown man who can figure out his own living situation. But Mom just started crying about how I'm abandoning the family in our time of need. Admittedly, the rent is quite cheap, and I'd never be able to find another place like that. Dad wasn't much help either. When I called to plead my case, he just kept saying, "Your mother has a point, and we all have to make sacrifices for family." Then he started on this whole spiel about how as a woman, it's my duty to put my brother's needs before my own, how I should be grateful for the opportunity to support him. I wanted to scream, what about the sacrifices I've made? I've been busting my butt in school while working part-time to pay my own way. Where's my parade? I've been on a full scholarship for the past 2 years, not asking them for a dime for tuition. To be fair to me, I haven't always been perfect to those around me. There have been times when I've given in to my parents' demands just to keep the peace, even when it went against what I wanted or needed. Like when I skipped my best friend's birthday to go to some family reunion I didn't even want to attend just because Dad said, "Family comes first." I'm not proud of it, but I've played the role of the dutiful daughter more times than I can count. But this time, something in me just snapped. Maybe it was the stress of classes and my upcoming finals, or maybe I was just finally sick and tired of always being expected to put myself last. I finally put my foot down and told them no way, no how am I moving out and subsidizing Noah's freeloading. You'd think I just announced I was running off to join the circus from the way they reacted. Mom hung up on me after screeching that I'm a selfish, ungrateful daughter, and Dad sent me a long text about how I'm turning my back on my family and my faith. I've been stewing about this for days now, feeling like the world's worst daughter and sister. I mean, I get that Noah's in a bind, and I do want to help him out, but am I crazy for thinking it's completely unfair for them to expect me to put myself in financial hardship just to bail out their golden boy? So what if I want to continue living here for cheap? They're my parents. It's what they should do. Make my life easier. I know Noah is not a bad guy, but he's always had everything handed to him on a silver platter. I don't think he truly understands how hard I've had to work for everything I have because he's never had to. He's one of those favored by heaven types. He was good-looking, always did well in exams even without reading, and his first app after graduation was a hit, leading to his startup. And my parents have always enabled him, making excuses and smoothing the way. It's like they can't even see how unfair they're being. Admittedly, fate has dealt its own justice. I won't even deny that I felt a little happy when his startup went belly up. If they want to let Noah live in my apartment rent-free, that's their prerogative as the owners, but I'm not going to keep paying for a roof over my head that I'm not even sleeping under. I've started looking for cheap rooms to rent near campus, but it's slim pickings this close to the start of the semester. I'm trying to stay strong in my convictions, but the guilt is eating me alive. My whole life, I've been made to feel like my needs come second to the men in my family, and it's hard to shake that programming. So, dear Reddit, please tell me, AITA for refusing to move out of my house and keep paying rent so my brother can live there for free? Is it okay for me to put my own oxygen mask on first for once? Or am I really being a selfish, disobedient daughter like my parents say? I'm honestly questioning everything right now. Part of me wants to just give in to keep the peace and not be the difficult one in the family, but a bigger part of me is screaming that this is my chance to finally stand up for myself and stop being a doormat. I'm just so tired of always feeling like I'm not enough, like my dreams and aspirations will always play second fiddle to the men in my life. Is it so wrong to want to put myself first for once, to want to feel like my needs and feelings matter too? So AITA for standing up for myself this time? Update 1. Wow, you'll lit my post on fire. First off, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read and comment, even those who don't agree with me. It means a lot to feel heard and validated. I did want to clarify a few things that seem to cause some confusion. Yes, I am Amish, but I am not currently living in an Amish community. I left when I was 18 to attend college. Getting the right certifications after attending Amish schools all my life was intense. That is a whole other story in itself. But just because I'm not living the traditional Amish lifestyle anymore doesn't mean those values and expectations don't still weigh on me. To the person who asked if I'm really Amish because I'm using technology and going to college, yes, I am Amish, but just like any culture, there's a spectrum of how strictly people adhere to traditional ways. My family is on the more conservative end, but that doesn't mean I'm not Amish just because I've chosen a different path. To those saying I should just suck it up and do what my parents ask because that's what daughters are for, or you should be grateful they're letting you live there at all, kindly take several seats. I'm not a child. I'm a 24-year-old woman paying my own way through school. The fact that my parents own the apartment doesn't give them the right to uproot my life on a whim. And to the delightful individual who suggested that I should be thrilled to give up my space for my brother because it's a woman's honor to serve the men in her life. Newsflash. This isn't the 1800s. Women are not dolls put on this earth to cater to men's every whim. My dreams and goals are just as valid as my brother's, and I'm not going to sacrifice myself for him. It's funny how no one seems to be questioning why Noah, a 27-year-old grown man, can't sort out his own living situation. If the rules were reversed and I was the one who needed a place to crash, you can bet your bottom dollar my parents would tell me to figure it out myself. For those questioning why I even maintain a relationship with my family if they're so controlling, it's not that simple. They're still my parents, and I love them, even if I don't always agree with them. Cutting off family is a huge decision, and not one I'd take lightly. I'm hoping that by setting boundaries and standing up for myself, we can find a healthier dynamic. To the happy folks saying I should just get over it and that this is not a big deal. Easy for you to say when you're not the one living it. Put yourself in my shoes for a moment. Imagine being told your whole life that your wants and needs come second to everyone else's, especially men's. Imagine finally building a life for yourself, only to have your family try to uproot it for the sake of your already privileged brother. It's not about the apartment. It's about the principle of the thing. And to the brave keyboard warrior who called me a spoiled brat for not bending over backwards to accommodate my brother, kindly take a stadium's worth of seats. It's not spoiled to expect basic respect and consideration from your family. It's not bratty to have dreams and ambitions of your own. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for equal treatment. Some of you have asked why I don't just move out and let my parents deal with the rent. Believe me, I would if I could. But have you seen the rental market in Massachusetts lately? It's brutal. Even with my scholarship and part-time job, I'm barely scraping by as it is. Since I absolutely hate asking my parents for money, giving up this cheap rent would mean crashing with friends. I'm not the type to live with other people. I get that family is supposed to help each other out, but I've spent my whole life being told to put my own needs last, and I'm tired of it. So no, I don't think I'm the a-hole for refusing to bankrupt myself emotionally and financially for my brother's sake. It's time for Noah to put on his big boy pants and figure his out, and it's time for my parents to stop enabling his entitlement at my expense. Anyways, thanks again to everyone who's offered support and perspective. It really means the world to me. I'll keep you all updated on how this shakes out. Wish me luck. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm back with another update. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to all the people who reached out with messages of support and shared their own stories of familial struggles. It's both comforting and heartbreaking to know I'm not alone in this. To all the other daughters out there who have been made to feel like your needs and dreams come second to the men in your life, I see you, I hear you, and I stand with you. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve to take up space in this world. So here's where things are at now. Despite my protests, my parents went ahead and told Noah he could move into the apartment. He showed up last weekend with his stuff and has been crashing in the bedroom, while I'm stuck on the couch, and I paid. Fine, I know I am not supposed to pay, but Noah is already here, and I am tired of my parents calling to express their disappointment in me. It's just moving out to let my brother live there, and I acted like the world came crashing down. Their words, not mine. But one thing I didn't compromise on is living here. I'll keep living there and keep paying rent. I can't even begin to describe how stressful and uncomfortable this whole situation is. I'm trying to study for finals, but it's impossible to concentrate with Noah lounging around all day, leaving his crap everywhere. He acts like he's on some kind of vacation while I'm scrambling to keep my head above water. The worst part is he doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency about finding a new job or place to live. He just keeps saying he's figuring things out, and that I need to be more understanding. It's like he doesn't even realize how much he's disrupting my life. He eats my groceries, uses my toiletries, and uses my face towel on his body. Meanwhile, my parents keep calling to check on Noah and make sure he's settling in okay. Not once have they asked how I'm doing or if I need any help. It's like I'm invisible to them. As if living with Noah wasn't stressful enough, I came home from a particularly grueling day of classes to find him hosting an impromptu brainstorming session with two of his tech bro friends. I walked into the apartment to find empty pizza boxes and beer cans strewn everywhere, and the three of them huddled around the coffee table, shouting over each other about their next big app idea. They barely even acknowledged my presence, let alone the mess they'd made. I tried to go to my room, well, the living room couch, to decompress and start on my mountain of homework, but their voices kept piercing my brain. Every time I thought they were wrapping up, they'd start in on another round of, "Bro, what if we," and "Dude, that's genius." After 2 hours of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I marched out and asked them to please keep it down as I had a lot of studying to do. They looked at me like I'd grown a second head, as if the concept of being considerate was totally foreign to them. Noah had the nerve to say, "Chill out, sis. We're working on the next big thing here. You'll thank me when we're millionaires." I wanted to scream, as if his hypothetical future success somehow justifies making my present life a living hell. I ended up having to go to the campus library to get any work done, and by the time I got back, they were gone. But the mess remained. I spent the next hour cleaning up crushed chip crumbs and sticky beer spills, fuming the whole time. It's bad enough that Noah feels entitled to my space and my family's support, but to bring his obnoxious friends into the mix and act like I'm the unreasonable one for wanting some peace and quiet in my own home? It's beyond infuriating. I'm trying my best to keep my cool and focus on my studies, but incidents like this make it clear that Noah has no respect for me or my boundaries. Something's got to give, and soon, before I completely lose my mind. I'm trying to stay positive and focus on my studies, but it's getting harder every day. I'm exhausted from sleeping on the lumpy couch and stressed about how I'm going to afford rent if I have to move out. I've been skipping meals to save money, and my grades are starting to slip. I feel like I'm drowning, and no one even realizes it. It's like my whole life has been upended, and I'm just expected to smile and bear it. There are moments where I just want to scream or cry or run away and never look back, but I know I have to stay strong. I didn't come this far just to give up now. Once I'm done with uni, I'll move far, far away. So I keep telling myself that this is temporary, that I'll find a way through this, but some days it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. To everyone who's reached out with words of encouragement or shared their own stories of overcoming family drama, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support means more than you know. Please keep me in your thoughts as I navigate this mess. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, I'm just taking it one day at a time and trying to remember my own worth. We've got this. Update 3. Well, folks, it's been 2 months since my last update. I totally forgot about it, and finals kept me occupied. It's been a wild ride, but I think I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. After my last update, things came to a head in a big way. I was at my wits' end with Noah's freeloading and my parents' constant coddling of him. I was seriously considering just begging one of my friends to take me in. But then, a miracle happened. Noah and I got into a huge argument one night about him leaving his dirty dishes all over the apartment. I was just so fed up with his entitlement and lack of respect. I started crying, telling him how much his presence was affecting my mental health and ability to focus on school. And for the first time, maybe ever, he actually listened. Like, really listened. He said he had no idea how much stress he was causing me, and that he'd been so wrapped up in his own problems, he hadn't even considered how his actions were impacting others. He apologized for taking advantage of my space and my parents' generosity. We ended up having a really long, honest talk about our childhood and how our parents' favoritism had affected us both in different ways. Noah admitted that he'd always felt pressure to be perfect and that his fear of failure had made him avoid dealing with his problems head-on. It was like a weight lifted off both of us, finally understanding where the other was coming from. We hugged it out and agreed to start fresh. The next day, Noah called our parents and told them he was moving out of the apartment and that they needed to start respecting my boundaries. He even offered to pay back the rent for the time he'd been staying there. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I never thought I'd see the day where Noah stood up to our parents on my behalf. Of course, they didn't take it well at first. There was a lot of guilt-tripping and waterworks from Mom and stoic disappointment from Dad. But for once, Noah and I presented a united front. We told them that their blatant favoritism and disregard for my needs ends now, or they risk losing us both. It was a tense few weeks, but I think the message finally sunk in. They've started calling to check in on me, not just Noah, and Dad even apologized for not considering my feelings more. It's not perfect, but it's a start. As for Noah, he's moved in with some friends and is actively job hunting. We've been talking more, trying to build a real sibling relationship, not tainted by our parents' influence. It's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful. And me? I'm just focused on finishing this semester strong. I passed my finals with flying colors and even got a summer internship lined up. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. I know my family still has a lot of work to do to break out of old patterns and truly see each other as equals, but I'm proud of the progress we've made and the way I've learned to stand up for myself. To everyone who's followed along on this journey and offered support, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your kind words and sage advice have been a lifeline for me. I hope my story can serve as inspiration for others going through similar struggles. And to my fellow women, especially those from conservative backgrounds, your voice matters. Your needs matter. You matter. Never let anyone tell you different. This isn't the end of my journey, but it feels like a beautiful new beginning. Onwards and upwards, my friends. I'm rooting for us all. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Kids abandoned me for their cheating mom. Kids abandoned me for their cheating mom, and our divorce was because her new husband gave them jobs in a company. They didn't invite me to their weddings and cut contact for 8 years. 8 years ago, I, 56M, found out that my wife, Marie, 52F, had been cheating on me with one of her friends from college. The affair had been going on for almost a year when I finally caught them. After I found out, I moved out of my house and immediately filed for divorce. We had already been having a pretty rough time in our marriage because she didn't think that I was bringing home enough money as a high school baseball coach. Even though I was doing my best, she just constantly kept complaining about everything. We would fight very frequently, and in my head, filing for divorce was not a very difficult decision at the time. Our 2 children had moved out already, so I had nothing to stay for either. Unfortunately, that divorce cost me my relationship with my kids as well because for whatever reason, they decided to side with their mother. Initially, they tried to convince me to go easy on her just because she had been a stay-at-home mom for a really long time. So, they tried to tell me that she must have been bored with the monotony of her life. On top of that, after they had moved out, we had started bickering over every little thing as well. Naturally, she wasn't happy, and I was going through a bit of a rough patch financially as well. But I couldn't understand why my kids were trying so hard to get me to forgive Marie, especially considering the fact that I was going through the exact same problems that she was, and yet I hadn't gone out of my way to cheat on her. In fact, after every fight that we would have, I would try to make it up to her and make her feel special somehow. Obviously, none of that meant anything to her, and I was very upset that my children were trying to get me to give her a second chance. So, I ended up fighting with them over this as well, and for a while they cut me out of their life. The loneliness and the reconnection attempt. After the divorce was finalized, I started feeling really lonely, especially since just 2 months after the divorce, Marie ended up remarrying the guy she had been having an affair with. I was not on speaking terms with my kids at the time, but then I tried to reach out to them, and they did forgive me. But that was just something that they said for the sake of it. I don't think they really did forgive me at the time because for the next couple of years, they did not even invite me to any of their milestones. As a matter of fact, I hardly had anything to do with my children up until earlier this year. The only reason that they are trying to get along with me right now is because I started my own business with a couple of my friends a few years ago, and all of a sudden, it started taking off recently. So, I'm doing pretty well for myself, and I'm guessing that that's what they're here for. For context, I had been working for a really long time as a high school sports coach, but unfortunately I was severely underpaid and overworked. I had a buddy who worked in another school, and the two of us were having a hard time with money. While trying to come up with some retirement plans, the two of us decided that we were going to speak to a couple of other people and try to start our own facility. That way, we would still be able to coach kids because that's what we were really good at and we had a lot of experience doing that as well, but we would be able to turn it into a business, and that would be our retirement plan. So we got another friend who was interested and had business acumen on board with us, and we started this. Honestly, we hadn't expected anything big out of it at the time, but we are proud to say that right now we are doing really well for ourselves, and I'm proud of how far we have come. Our facility is pretty popular, and we are thinking about branching out soon. I'm guessing that my kids must have heard of it because they reached out to me earlier this year and started trying to get on my good side. Initially, I was really happy that they were trying to involve me more in their lives because I thought that they had finally come to their senses or something. I didn't suspect that they might have had ulterior motives. The visit and the realization. But a couple of days ago, the two of them came to visit me. My oldest, Gavin, and his sister Hannah are both married now. Gavin got married 6 years ago, and Hannah got married 4 years back. I was not invited to either wedding because they told me that their mother would be there along with her husband, and it would just get too awkward for everyone. I was very upset about it, but they told me that it can't be helped. The wedding would be too full and promised to make it up to me at some point, which they never really did. But like a fool, I kept waiting for them to realize someday that I was just as much a parent to them as their mother was. I thought it was finally happening, but then, when they visited me recently and started telling me about how they had heard that my business was doing really well, and they wanted me to start spending more time with my grandkids and also help them out with some money, I finally realized what was actually going on. It was really difficult for me not to get mad at them at the time, but I told them that I would definitely consider it, and they seemed happy enough. So they left, but after they were gone, I blocked them everywhere because I was pretty sure that they were trying to use me for my money. Gavin has 2 kids. One of them is 5 years old, and the youngest is just a year old. From what I know, Hannah just gave birth to her daughter 6 months back. And guess what? I have not met any of my grandkids yet. It's been 5 years since my first grandkid was born, and I haven't even met him. Of course, it hurts. I've tried to get Gavin to bring over his kids or try to get them to invite me over so I can meet them. When Hannah's daughter was born, I tried to meet her as well, but they always just declined. It was always the same excuse. That Marie and her husband would be there, and they didn't want things to get awkward. I would always have to understand and let it go. And it hurt. And now they finally want to give me a chance to play grandpa, and I'm guessing it's all because things are not going well for them financially. I had no idea about any of this earlier, which is why I hadn't cut them out of my life entirely. Digging for the truth. Just putting this out there. Anyway, I am not really in touch with most of the extended family, and I'm not one for family gossip. But after my kids visited me after so many years and started trying to be nice to me and stuff, I could guess that something was very weird about the situation. So, after they left, I blocked them, and just to satisfy my own curiosity, I decided to do some asking around about what my kids were up to. And that is how I managed to find out that they were having a really rough patch financially for the past couple of years. And on top of that, things were not exactly sunshine and rainbows with their stepdad anymore. I found it really shocking because from whatever photos they had been posting after their mother got remarried, it seemed as if the family was very close to the guy. But apparently, things are going sour because he's planning on selling his company. They deal in furniture, and after Marie married him, my kids started working in his company. I don't want to say it because I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that that's why they were so eager to take their mom's side in the divorce, because they believed that if they got me to go easy on their mother instead of dragging out the divorce, it would guarantee them a spot in their stepdad's company. Basically, they had been bought out by Marie's affair partner, and I never found out about it because I had never even suspected something like that happening. Anyway, the problem right now is that the company hasn't been doing too well in the past couple of years, and Marie's husband wants to sell it. But my kids want him to retain the business. He's the owner of the company, so he stands to benefit the most from the deal, and he's lucky enough to have even found a buyer right now. But my kids don't approve of the deal because even though they'll get a portion of the proceeds as shareholders and upper management employees, they're still obviously going to be losing their jobs, and they want a long-term plan for themselves. It's a whole thing, and a lot of people from the family know about it because Maria is a bit of a big mouth, and she has been venting about this to literally everyone who will listen. So, it's no big secret that their family is fighting right now, and I'm guessing that's why Gavin and Hannah decided to come to me for help. Confrontation and accusations. It's no big secret that we are doing well. We are running ads and stuff, and the whole word-of-mouth thing is also going pretty well for us. So, after putting all of this together by speaking to a bunch of my relatives, I decided that I was going to keep my kids blocked. I had no interest in their lives. For the past 8 years, they had had no interest in mine, and even right now, they are only here because they're in trouble. It feels insulting, and I feel like an idiot for having counted on them to come to their senses at some point and apologize to me. But a couple of days after I blocked them, they showed up at my door again and they started demanding that I let them in, even though I told them that I was not interested in talking to them. I told them that I had heard from the family what was going on with them and their stepdad, and I knew that they were only here because they wanted financial help from me, and that the reason they had left me in the first place was because their stepdad could offer them secure jobs and upper management positions that I couldn't. I called them sellouts, and in retaliation, they started accusing me of being insensitive and resentful because apparently they had no such intentions. They told me that they really just wanted to make things right with me because they had realized that at the end of the day, I was still their father, and they couldn't just constantly prioritize Marie over me. They also told me that the only reason they had asked me for financial help was because of their kids, not just because I was doing well for myself financially right now. They said that it was disgusting that I had even come to that conclusion after listening to a bunch of no-good gossip mongers from the family. This happened 2 days back, and I've been very upset about all of this. It's so bad that I had to take time off of work because I really can't stop thinking about what I'm doing right now. I know that logically and rationally the rest of the family is probably not lying to me. They wouldn't stand to gain anything from it, and also, the rest of my family has always been nice to me, especially after my divorce. They have always looked out for me, and I really appreciate that. So, I don't think that they are lying about anything, and neither are they gossiping. They're just telling me what I asked them about because I was the one who went digging into the situation. That being said, I also don't understand if I should actually give my kids a chance to fix things with me or not, and just help them out financially a little. After all, I am indeed doing well enough to support them, and I'm pretty sure that they're not asking for a long-term thing. They're probably going to get a job after the company gets sold, and they're probably just asking me to be their safety net because of their kids. I haven't exactly spoken to them about what kind of money they really want, whether it is good to be an investment or a loan or just plain old goodwill, but either way, I know that financial support is a part of this. And I feel like just because of something like that, I really don't want to let go of an opportunity to reconnect with my children and actually get to build a relationship with my grandkids. The way they spoke about the situation the other day that they visited, I've been thrown for a curveball, and I really don't know what to think anymore. I've just been constantly stressed out, and I keep thinking that maybe I'm making the biggest mistake of my life by shutting my kids out of my life, and maybe I am being insensitive and resentful like they said. If I do let my ego get the better of me, I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to get another chance to make it work with my family. The only thing that's stopping me right now is because I fear that I'm being used, and I really don't want that. I just don't know what to think anymore. I feel lost, and I don't even think that I have anybody I can talk to about this freely, so I'm here. Please just try to understand that I'm just an old man trying to figure out life after having pretty much been on my own since my divorce. As much as I hate to admit it, I do miss my children a lot and I want them in my life, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to go about it. Am I the asshole for not wanting to get financially involved with my kids? Update 1, a reality check. Thanks for the comments. I guess I really needed a reality check on the situation because out of desperation, I had actually started considering talking to my kids. But I know that I'm being used, and I shouldn't be such a doormat for them. That's what I have been all these years. They would speak to me as if they were doing me a favor, and even then, they would always snub me because they preferred Marie and her husband. And now that I finally know why exactly they preferred him, I don't think there's any going back from here. I've even spoken to my buddies about it while we were at work, and while they knew the history and everything, when I told them about the current situation and about everything that I had found out just recently, they were appalled. They said that initially, since they had believed that my kids had been manipulated by Marie and that's why they did not want to keep in touch with me, they still believed that there could be some scope for reconciliation. But now that they know that they had technically been bought out by their stepdad, there was just no coming back from it. They told me to keep my kids blocked for the sake of my own self-respect and sanity because if I didn't, they would end up burning a hole in my pocket for sure. I still don't know what kind of money they wanted. Could have been a small amount, but even then, I don't really owe it to them. Even if they were being truthful the other day that they were asking for the money for their children and not for themselves, I still don't owe it to them. They have never brought my grandkids over to see me, and neither have they allowed me to go over to see them, so why would I have a connection with anyone? I know it sounds kind of insensitive, but it's true. I can't start feeling bad for every kid that I haven't even met and giving away money in the form of charity. So, if that makes me insensitive and resentful in their language, then so be it. I don't care, and I don't need to justify myself to them. I'm just going to keep myself far away from them and live my life. It is going to hurt, but I don't think it can hurt any more than it has for the past 8 years. If I put up with that without complaint, I think I can deal with the aftermath of cutting them off right now as well. At least this time it's going to be my choice, and I'll be in control of the situation instead of them treating me badly. Anyway, thank you for hearing me out. I really needed to vent my feelings somewhere. If there are any developments in the situation, I will keep you guys updated, and thanks for the support. Update 2. An unwanted visit. Hello. So, it's been 2 weeks since I posted my last update, and I had said that if there were any developments in the situation, I would post here and keep you guys in the loop. So, yesterday, while I was at work, Gavin and Hannah showed up with my grandkids and started demanding to see me. I was busy with a training session with a couple of students, and usually I don't take meetings during that time. Whoever wants to meet me has to wait, but apparently, they had refused to wait. I don't know why they were expecting special treatment, given the fact that nobody even knew that they were my kids. Even if they did, that did not entitle them to preferential treatment. Anyway, our receptionist informed me of the situation and told me that they were not willing to wait. I was pretty annoyed, so I decided to ask security to escort them to my office and make them wait there so they wouldn't cause a scene in the lobby. Then, I took my own sweet time to finish up the training session, and after making them wait for almost half an hour, I finally went back to my office so they could meet me. It was petty, but they needed to learn a lesson that they couldn't just show up at my workplace and expect me to entertain them regardless of what time of day it was. Anyway, when I finally went back to my office, it was very obvious that Gavin and Hannah were both very upset. My grandkids also seemed pretty bored and fussy. As soon as I walked into my office, they started lecturing me about the importance of time and told me that it was very rude of me not to talk to them and make them wait so long on purpose just out of spite, especially when I knew for a fact that my grandkids were also here with them. Their entitlement was really annoying, so I told them that I treated them just the same as I would have treated anyone who would come to meet me during a training session. If other people could wait for me to finish doing my job and then meet me, they could do the same. The fact that they expected special treatment from me just because they were my kids was really stupid, especially considering the fact that I hadn't even been treated well by them in the past, let alone receiving special treatment even though I was their father. Their decision to bring their children along with them was their own fault. This was a training facility, and I had a job here that was important to me. So, if they couldn't handle the fact that I was treating them normally, they were free to leave. The only reason they had waited was because they wanted to. I hadn't forced them. I had been very curt with them, and I could see that they were upset. But I guess they needed the favor from me, so they didn't make matters worse for themselves. Instead, they changed the topic pretty quickly, and they told me that they had brought their kids along to meet me for the first time so I could actually build a relationship with them and start feeling like a grandpa for the first time in my life. It was really hard for me, but I had to shoot that down. I told them that I was heading home since that had been my last training session of the day, and now that I was done, I just wanted to go home and relax. Besides, I knew exactly what they were trying to do. They were using their grandkids to get on my good side, and this was not going to work. I told them that it was pretty spineless of them to try and use their children so they could have access to me. It's just unethical. They started defending themselves, telling me that that's not what they were trying to do. They had just brought their kids along because they wanted me to meet them. We ended up arguing over it because it was so blatantly obvious that this was not coming from a place of genuine feeling. They just wanted my money, and that's why they were desperately trying to make sure that I give them another chance. I could see right through them, and no matter how much they insisted on it, I told them that it was too little and too late. I did love my grandkids at first sight. All of them are adorable, and I really wish that we had met under different circumstances, but then again, that's something that their parents are to blame for. Anyway, after the argument, they started insisting that at least I hear them out and let them tell me about their plan for which they need my money. But I told them that I wasn't interested. Even when they had been arguing, they had started sounding quite frustrated. And after I told them that I wasn't interested, Gavin lost his temper and started yelling at me. Then, the kids started crying because he was being quite vicious. So, I started trying to comfort the kids while they were busy trying to argue with me, and it was so infuriating that at one point, I told them that if they did not want me to call security and have them thrown out of the building, then they should clear out by themselves instead of making me do it because I was getting sick of them and I meant business. I guess they had realized that, so they finally left after telling me that I was being completely heartless and my ego was going to bring me down. But that didn't matter to me. I just wanted to go home and get some rest, so that's what I did. It's been 24 hours since then, and I still haven't unblocked them, and I don't plan on doing that either, especially after what happened yesterday. I don't think that I need to. I'm done. Update 3, a seeming apology. Hello. It has been 3 days since I last met my children. I obviously have not unblocked them, but they have not stopped trying to get in touch with me. Earlier today, they sent me an email from a new address apologizing for everything that went down recently. They told me that this was not the way that they had expected things to unfold, but they could understand why I was upset with them. Initially, they had been very annoyed that I was acting like this even though they were trying to make things right with me, but now after giving it a lot of thought, they had realized that they kind of deserved it. They also confirmed everything that I had already known, that everything that I had heard about them was true, and it wasn't just baseless gossip. They had just been a little taken by surprise when I accused them of choosing their stepdad over me just because of the security that he could provide financially. They hadn't seen it coming, and they had also been a little offended. But at the end of the day, it was true, so they couldn't really do anything to change that. But now they had realized that while looking out for themselves, they had become very selfish and I had deserved better. At this point in time, I was totally entitled to shut them out, but the only thing that they would request me to do was not do that to the kids. They also told me the plan that they had. They were actually planning on asking me to invest in the business that they were starting together. Obviously, they cannot stop their stepdad from selling his company. It's completely his decision as the primary owner, but they were going solo now, and they didn't want to jeopardize their own finances. So, they were thinking about getting a couple of investors on board, and their first thought had obviously been me since they were not getting along well with their stepdad right now. After a lot of thinking, they realized that they had been selfish this time around as well, trying to get me on board as an investor but never really being sorry for everything that they have done in the past. So, they were writing this email to just apologize to me and tell me that if I wanted to meet my grandkids, I could call them any time that I wanted, and they would show up, and they didn't even want me to invest in their business anymore. It would be completely my decision. After reading that email, I was a bit confused about what to do since it seemed pretty genuine. But then again, I've been taken for a fool before, and I don't want that to happen again. However, I do want to build a relationship with my grandchildren. So, I guess I'm going to have to think about it. Whatever I decide, I'll post it here after a while. For now, though, I just want to break from everything, so for the next couple of days or maybe weeks, I won't be posting so frequently. Update 4. A new beginning. Hey, so I gave it a lot of thought, and now that it has been almost 2 months since they last reached out to me, I decided that I was going to try and build a relationship with my grandkids at the very least. I know that with my kids, for a fact, it'll take us a long time to reconnect, but that's not the case with my grandchildren, and I'm already 58. I'm not getting any younger, and I don't want to waste any time or opportunities that I'm getting to spend with my family, no matter how little it is. Besides, my grandkids have already grown a lot without knowing their grandpa, and by grandpa I mean their biological and real grandpa. So, a couple of days ago, I finally wrote back to my children on that email address, and I told them that I would be more than happy to welcome them with their spouses and grandkids for dinner at my house this weekend. But in the same email, I also made it very clear that I would not be investing in their business. If they were expecting me to help them out financially at any point, they could forget about it, and if that meant that they were not going to be willing to visit me, I was fine with that as well. I just want to make it abundantly clear to them that I had my boundaries and that I was not going to allow them to cross them. The tone of my email and the later part had been quite stern, so I hadn't exactly expected them to reply the same day, but thankfully, they did. They told me that they did not expect me or want me to invest in their business. They did not deserve it, but they did want me to be able to build a relationship with my grandkids, so they were happy to accept my dinner invitation. So, that's how they ended up coming over for dinner yesterday, and we actually had a pretty nice time. Their spouses are really nice people, and all of them apologized to me for everything that had happened in the past, and they told me that they were looking forward to starting again, and I am too. I would really want to have a family because honestly it gets kind of lonely, and soon enough I'm going to be retiring as well. So, well, I guess this is as good a time and opportunity as any to fix things. I'm really happy that my kids finally decided to reach out to me and do the right thing. Hopefully, things will get better for us in the future. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Husband demanded DNA tests. Then I found out he was engaged to a pregnant woman. Hello everyone. I, 34F, have been with Ken, not his real name, 37M, since I was 16. We met in school as he was my brother's friend. We have been married for 10 years, have a 2-year-old son, and one on the way. Ken has always been my person, the person who you can't picture life without, and I honestly can't remember not loving him. I grew up with him, he's my everything. Unfortunately, Ken has this issue where he takes on everyone else's feelings like to heart. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. However, recently, his best friend of 20 years has just found out that his wife has been cheating on him, and none of the children are his. Obviously, his friend is devastated and is staying in our guest room. He's a nice guy, just life has him down right now. He started the process of divorce. The more time Ken spends with his friend, the more depressed he's become and distant. Our mornings used to start where I would wake up at 6 a.m. with our son, make breakfast, then about 8 a.m. I could wake Ken up with a coffee and some breakfast before going to drop little one off at nursery and go to work. Ken works from home most days, only going into the office on a Monday. So, I'd give him his coffee, he'd give me a kiss, and then I'd go off on my happy little way. Then I'd finish work, get our son, and go home, where Ken would be making tea. I'd clean up after whilst he was bathing our son and putting him to bed. I thought this was life. It might sound boring to some, but it was my life, and I loved it. Our house was filled with love. We would spend our nights cuddling, talking, watching a movie. Date night once a month. We would take our son out together on a Saturday, and then Sunday go visit family or have friends over. You get the picture. I'm rambling, sorry. Anyway, for the past month, things have been changing. Ken is more depressed. I make him a coffee in the morning and just get a mumbled, thanks. I come home from work, and the friend and him would be in the living room watching sports. I'm now making tea, bathing our son. Neither of them will barely talk to me. We don't go out on the weekends together. I feel like a single parent. I've tried to talk to Ken about it all, but I get one-word answers. Then he stays up till about 1 a.m., which I know it's not super late, but I'm passed out by then. I'm exhausted, alone, and pregnant. I miss my husband. Yesterday, I came home from work, and you know when something just doesn't feel right? Well, I went to find Ken to see what he was doing, as his friend wasn't in the house, but Ken's car was. He was in his office looking up DNA kits for our son. I asked him why, and his response was, well, I just want to make sure all the kids are mine before I continue looking after them, as I'm not free childcare. This broke me. When I say I'm devastated, it's an understatement. But if he thinks that I've cheated on him, then surely the trust is gone. Is there any going back? Am I just being pregnant and hormonal? Would I be extreme for looking for a divorce? I could put the papers in the envelope with the results from the DNA test. I think I'm going to go cry in bed now. Had to take the day off work as I feel like I've just been gut-punched. Update 1. Hello Reddit. Well, after my post earlier this afternoon, and I cried, then read all your lovely comments, and I couldn't be more grateful. I think posting about it here really helps for some reason. Weird how telling complete strangers that I'm struggling with life seems to help. So, I think after my pity party, which couldn't last long due to being a parent, I called my stepmom and dad. My mom died when I was 10. They are coming to stay with me on Friday. Crying on the phone helped, although I'm not really sure they could truly understand a word of what I was saying. I've spoken to Ken, well, more like spoke at Ken, telling him that his friend has till Thursday to leave. I'm not a monster and can't just tell him to leave at the drop of a hat. I've also told Ken he needs to leave too. Whilst, yes, I could go to my dad's house, I don't want to disrupt my little one more than needed, and all the things for my baby are here too, especially as I'm 8 months along. It just seems stupid for me to be the one to leave. I've made it a point of not pointing out it's my house either. I'm trying to be calm and sensible. I'm not 100% sure Ken listened, but I did message his sister, who is a force to be reckoned with, and she said she will make sure he's gone by Thursday night. Things I've told Ken I want is, yes, he can have the DNA test, but I will be damned if I'm the one to do it. He can also have one for the baby, as I ain't got shit to hide. I know that some people have questioned why I'm so against it. Let me make something clear. I would never cheat because, as I said in my last post, Ken is / or was I to know, my person. He's the only man I've ever been with, so that isn't any concern of mine. I'm just hurt that he wants one because clearly he doesn't trust me. So, things I want him to have the DNA tests mainly so I can make him eat the results. Not literally, I'm just venting. I'm also going to suggest couples therapy. I already see one due to losing my mom and my little sister in a car crash when I was little. I want to suggest he sees one alone, but you can lead a horse to water but can't make him drink it. I don't want to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. I want him to maintain contact with our son. Yes, he doesn't believe he's the father right now, but that's no reason he should neglect him, as he's his, and I don't want to upset my son. Yay, he's only 2, but still, he deserves all the love from both his parents. He's done nothing wrong. Then, obviously, this one when he or she comes along. Still not sure about the state of my marriage, but even if divorce is what happens, I need to be able to get through to him so he can be the father he was. Am I going insane? Do I sound insane? I don't know why writing here helps so much. Thanks. Reddit. Update 2. Hello again. Following my 2 other posts, I will answer some questions. Yes, it is my house. It was left to me when my mom died. I have lived here all my life. I didn't move out because I have a child and one on the way, so why should I be the one to leave? I get that some people believe I was out for asking him to leave, but as I was heavily pregnant, have a toddler, and it's my house, I wasn't about to leave. Yes, he could have stayed, but have you tried living with someone who just wants to argue or just not talk? I'd prefer my child not to live in that environment. Thank you. At the end of the day, I'm a mother first and a wife second. If you think that's harsh, then I don't know what to tell you. My children come first, end of. Well, Ken's friend did leave the day I told him he had until Thursday. He wasn't happy about it and shouted some insults at me, which was amazing. Ken's sister came and picked up Ken. I wish I could tell you what she said, but she didn't say anything in front of me, just kept giving Ken death stares. We did get the DNA test for little one, and Ken is the father, obviously. Ken somehow thinks I've intercepted the results, even though I wasn't the one that did it, I wasn't the one that got handed the results, etc. So he's clearly lost his mind. My dad came over, and whilst I was making tea, my water broke. My little girl is here. She's healthy and happy. She was 9 pounds 8 ounces, so no concern of anything with her. I'm now a mom of 2. I am home now, and Ken has been to see his baby girl, although as she's not had a DNA test, he disagrees with her being his because his family doesn't have many girls. Yet he has a sister. So I just rolled my eyes. I don't really know where to go from here. Ken is refusing therapy. He says there's nothing wrong with him or his brain. I beg to differ. He wants to get another DNA test for our boy but won't tell me when or where, so I can't interfere. Maybe one day he will come to his senses. My dad and stepmom are staying with me for a while to help me with the babies. I'd like to say I'm okay, but honestly, my emotions are all over the show. I don't know which way is up. Ken's sister visits the babies, and we have an unspoken rule that we don't speak about Ken apart from when our son asks about him. I wish it was the kind of update where he got the results, seen how much of an idiot he's been, and we move on, but sadly that's not the case. I can't dwell on it too much, just take shit one day at a time. I do miss my person and worry that he's missing out on his baby girl's life already, which if I think about too much, I will just sit and cry. But I don't have time for that. As always, thanks for listening to me rant. I might update if anything else happens. In my life right now, I'm still left wondering, am I doing the right thing here? Is there anything I could do differently? Why are my kids so hard for him to accept all of a sudden? Update 3. Hello again, Reddit. Things have been bizarre, but now I have closure. I know what's happened to my marriage. I know what scum Ken really is. He's not my person and never truly was. So now, I just want to divorce him, cut my losses, and move on with my life. I'm still at home with my baby, settling into motherhood. My dad and stepmom are still here, but they will be leaving soon once I'm more emotionally stable. To say I'm okay would be a lie, but I now know what I need to do. I have some sort of closure with Ken. I know what happened with him, and I know that it's not my fault. Turns out Ken was having an affair and has a baby on the way. Even typing that makes me want to throw up. I found this out when a visibly pregnant lady just knocked on my door and asked me when I would be leaving the house, as it's Ken's house. When I say this confused the crap out of me, I mean it. I talked to this woman for a while to try to work out what she was talking about. Turns out that she's Ken's side piece. Well, technically, in her head, she's his fiancée. A month ago, Ken got down on one knee and proposed to her in my kitchen. Classy, right? So they have been seeing each other for a while. She's having his baby. She believes I'm the ex-wife who Ken is letting stay in his house till I get on my feet. We apparently broke up a few years ago, and none of my kids are Ken's. When I go to work in the mornings, Ken goes to her house and works from there. They were waiting for marriage to move in together. How are you trying to marry someone when you're already married? Effing weirdo. I asked for proof of all this. She has pictures of them together. Apparently, she has an OnlyFans account that they make content together. I told her we are still married and explained everything to her. I'm not sure what she's going to do, but hey, not my circus, not my monkey. Now I want a divorce. Is it true that once you talk to a solicitor about divorce, they can't represent the person you're divorcing? I want to go around our town and meet with as many solicitors as possible, as the first hour is free, so that he has a very hard time getting representation. Is that too petty? The house is in my name only and is protected, so there is no way he can take it. I have all my money, and we do have a joint account, but that's just what we put our share of household bills in. I haven't spoken directly with Ken. His family have completely cut him off, and he's been kicked out of his sister's house. All those people that were concerned about him having a tumor or something wrong with his brain, I really don't think that's the case. I think his actions just caught up to him. As his eyes were going to come out once his baby was born, I think that's what happened. He got backed into a corner and tried to fight his way out through the divorce process. I will get the court to do DNA testing so he has proof for both, even if he chooses to not believe it. I'm mentally exhausted from all of this and sat wondering how I didn't notice. Might have to go for an IQ test. But honestly, would I be so wrong for just making his life as difficult as possible to get legal advice? Or is that too far? I want him to suffer. Update 4. December 1st, 2024. Well, hello there again, Reddit. I'm okay. I totally just forgot about my ramblings on here. LOL. I'm doing okay. I'm officially divorced from Ken. Took a long time to get to this part of my life, and at some points I actually felt like I was drowning. Both of my kids had a DNA test through the courts, and they are Ken's. He still doesn't believe it. Not my problem, though. Ken is now in prison for domestic abuse. I'm not 100% on the details because I wasn't involved. It was his side piece. I'd love to say that sometimes I don't break down in tears and I'm completely over it, but I'm not. I've now gone back to work, though, after my maternity leave was finished. I got a promotion, and now I'm used to living with just us three. My kids keep me going, and I'm so proud of them. They go visit their grandparents and dad's side of the family, and they have been so lovely and supportive. His sister is still amazing. I don't really know what else to say, just I'm okay. I'm divorced, and my children are thriving. I can't thank Ken for a lot of things, but I'm grateful for my children. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Brother's fiancé uninvited me from their wedding because I wouldn't take communion. When our older brother defended me, my brother attacked him. I, 31F, have 3 siblings, 40M, 38F, and 27M, and we have a good relationship despite the age gaps between some of us. My older siblings are both married, and so am I. The wedding in question is my younger brother's. My younger brother, Luke, is engaged to his GF of a year, Emma, 28F. She is nice, I guess, but we have never really clicked and are just polite to each other. Something important is that we are all Catholic, but not really hardcore ones, and some of us are even lapsed. I do believe this whole situation started just when I met her for the first time. I look younger than Luke, and it has always been a sibling joke that I am truly the baby of the family. Most people that meet us assume he is older than me, but nobody has had issues with it until Emma. The day I met her, she kinda scoffed when I said I was happy the baby had a proper girlfriend. She has this weird thing about being the eldest in her family and refused to believe I was older than her until I showed her my ID. She has been hot and cold with me since then, often infantilizing me or trying to have a sort of boss attitude. I just let her be and usually ignore her since I have no time to try and beg for her friendship, so I'm just polite and civil. I always include her when planning stuff, but don't really make an effort. The family knows about it, but we just shrugged it to different personalities. Then the wedding planning started. Emma decided I could not be in the wedding party since I was not married in a church. Fine by me. Then she requested that immediate family submits their dress planning so she could check it fits the wedding dress code. Fine, whatever. You see where this is going, I hope. I have not gone to confession or had communion in more than a decade. If I go to a mass for whatever reason, I am respectful and simply sit or stay standing during the rites. I don't participate. Well, this is not good enough for her. And she says I need to take communion during their wedding. I said no, and she has not taken it well. For the most part, I avoid her as I said before, but this time I wasn't going to say yes or risk an issue. I told her, for taking communion, one needs to go to confession, and I didn't want to. She said all immediate family is doing it, and it will look bad if I don't. I told her, sure, fine. Then I'll just go have communion in front of everybody, but won't do confession. She said if this was going to be my attitude, I was uninvited from the wedding because I clearly wanted to ruin the day for her. I turned to my brother and told him thanks, gave him a thumbs up, and went home. My family understand my reasoning and said they respect everybody's choices, but I shouldn't have said what I said. I told them I really don't want to go to the wedding anymore, and I don't owe Emma explanations on my life. I only called my grandma because she heard what happened and asked me not to disrespect the church by doing the communion without confession. I promised I wouldn't do it, and she is fine with me now. I got a text from my brother wanting to compromise, so I replied by asking if the other lapse people are being made to take confession, too. He said no because it was only nuclear family members. I find it funny since all the others are clearly older than her, and she just behaves like this with me and the youngsters. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, NTA. Who died and made Emma Pope? OP. LOL. I will share this particular one with my grandma next time we talk. She is going to love it. Comment. You should alert the priest to her behavior. He will ensure that she stops with her actions. She cannot make rules that do not exist in the church. I would send a quick email to him and let her deal with the consequences of her own actions. OP. I actually considered it, but I don't think I will. My grandma might be doing it herself. She has lapsed herself but didn't want me to be disrespectful. But she knows the priest that will be officiating and is not really happy with all the show. Update 1. October 26, 2024. Things have moved, but I wouldn't call any of this a positive progress. I would like to clear something I kept seeing in the comments. I won't request a special blessing or go in the queue for communion. It isn't about the blessing or the compromise, but the singling me out. I often just stay quiet or take a general family blessing if we go to weddings, etc. I have no issue with compromises. I have an issue with Emma and her ridiculousness. I don't know why she has this thing with me. I do look young, but not like a teen or a child, obviously. She has 2 younger sisters and is very authoritative with them. I have witnesses her being very my way or the highway with younger people, so she has issues for sure. The confrontation from the last post was on Tuesday, and today we had lunch at my grandma's. I think you should also know that my brothers have a tricky relationship, as in, they are not as close with each other as they are with other siblings. My older brother, Robert, is very no-nonsense. and he has never been a fan of Emma. But he didn't think he should have to intervene because Luke is an adult and capable of navigating relationships. All this is going to be relevant, I promise. We visit Grandma a lot since she lives by herself, and we truly enjoy her company. Today we were all there because she is over this drama already. After a lunch that was more like snacking, to be honest, she asked us all to clear the air. Emma continued with her rant about me being a disrespectful person and that she was asking the bare minimum for me. My grandma asked her why she had no issue with her not taking communion, and Emma said that she was her elder, and for sure her reasons were more than a tantrum like it was in my case. She also repeated that she was asking this of all the siblings, and I was the only one that was being difficult with her tiny request. This is where everything crumbled for her. I mentioned in the comments that Robert is also lapsed, and he was already exhausted by the situation. He asked her why she had no issues with him not taking communion, and she looked like a kid that was caught. She didn't have a proper answer. Robert then asked her if she even knew why he and Grandma became lapsed. She shook her head and looked at Luke for help. Luke, on the other hand, was staring angrily at Robert and I but said nothing. Robert explained to Emma he was the reason Grandma became lapsed. When Robert was a teen, he came out as gay and was so worried about our grandparents' reaction since they were very active in the Catholic Church. Grandma felt awful about it, and even worse when she went and spoke about this with the then priest of her church. That priest was super old school and told her that Robert was committing sins, he was going to hell, he needed to find his way, the whole 9 yards. Grandma didn't take that so well and simply stopped going to church and started spending that time with her grandchildren. Over the years, she started getting into the whole community again, but she decided she was done taking the sacraments. She respects parts of the church but can't fully reconcile with it. Emma was a bit confused since Robert is married to a woman, and he explained he is bisexual and ended up with a woman, just as he could have ended with a man. He also commented they are not married in the church, but that didn't matter to her like it mattered when it came to me. He asked her directly what was her problem with me. Long story short, she said I was rude since the beginning and kept treating Luke wrong. Oh, and I also was very snarky about looking younger than her. Crickets. She is a beautiful, successful woman, so I still don't understand her obsession, but it seems like she wants people to see I respect her and what she says. I just started laughing. She started crying and saying I turned my grandma against her. My grandma told her to stop blaming people for her being a negative person and she was always going to side with me over her. Luke got upset at that and asked her why she was not supporting him, and she simply said she doesn't support him being a lapdog for a crazy woman. More was said. Nothing got truly resolved. I was kind of invited again, but declined going. Grandma is undecided if she even wants to go at all. My older siblings told Luke they will go to the ceremony if he seeks couples therapy or at least therapy. My parents are having headaches and now dislike Emma so much they can't hide it. Oh, and yes, Grandma spoke with the priest and he wants them to do extra premarital counseling or he won't officiate. I hope they don't get married, but he is old enough to derail his life if he wants. I thank you for letting me vent, and my grandma loved the Pope joke comment. Comments where OP has replied. Comment. LOL. Well, I hope for your brother's sake that the extra premarital counseling results in him rethinking his plan to marry Ms. Entitled and Controlling. Good luck to you. Opie. What's ironic is that the Catholic Church has a mandatory course or consultation called pre-cana that couples must complete before marrying in the Catholic Church. The course helps couples prepare for the sacrament of marriage by reflecting on the spiritual, emotional, and practical aspects of marriage. The priest or deacon also weighs in on the compatibility of the couple. At least those I know who went through it had that happen. I think it varies by diocese, but I know my cousin's was 6 months long. Update 2. October 28, 2024. My brother has gone too far, and I decided to be done with him. He made our grandma cry, and I think permanently damaged a lot of his relationships. I want to mention some of my cousins and other family members thought I was just stubborn and creating drama, but now there is no longer my side or his side. Maybe he always felt this way, but the issue he has with Robert is absolutely ridiculous. He was so upset with what Grandma said about him being Emma's lapdog that he called her to speak about it. I was obviously not present for the conversation, but Grandma told me what happened and Luke confirmed it. He told her that it was unfair of me to ask Robert for help since he was her favorite grandchild and would get her to side with me no matter how wrong I was. He also told her that many of the cousins believed this and that it was so obvious since she even left her religion for him. He claimed the other LGBTQ+ members of the family, most were not even born when Robert came out, by the way, doubted if she would do it for them. So, Grandma explained to Luke and then called every single one of her grandchildren to ask them how they felt and explained to each a part we didn't know. She said that when Robert came out and she spoke with the old priest, he hinted about knowing of places to set Robert straight. Grandma had heard horror stories from these places and so had Robert, and they both spoke with my parents together about that not being an option at all. My parents never intended to send Robert there and are very casual Catholics, but Grandma wanted to cover the bases just in case. I was told Grandma sounded like she had been crying on the phone, and after the first couple of calls, which went from oldest to youngest, the group chat started to blow. Robert is livid. Our LGBTQ+ cousins are livid and say Luke lied. Even the cousins that were telling me to stop being a stubborn head are livid. By the time I was up for my call, I was already on the way to Grandma's. 2 of my cousins were already there, and the youngest one, Sarah, 16F, was ready to literally fight Luke. For a bit of levity, Sarah is about 35 centimeters smaller than Luke, and the image of her swinging at him made me laugh a bit. She asked if I was making fun of her, and I just explained the whole mental image of her trying to hit him, and she admitted it was kind of funny. What I didn't tell her is I would love to slap some sense into Luke. My grandma has been through so much in her life, and this is not what we want for her. She looks puffy-faced and kept asking everybody if they truly felt unloved by her, saying she would do everything for any of us, explaining how Robert was the oldest grandchild, but that didn't mean she loved the rest any less. She is a strong woman, but I think something inside her broke a little with the thought she hurt her grandchildren. It was a show, a big one, and I was just so done with Luke. My parents have been passive towards the situation so far because I asked them to, but after they heard what happened, they told them they need time away from him. Robert is simply disgusted and decided to not speak with him anymore, which he communicated through the cousin group chat, with Luke's response being that this is why Emma's help on reining all of us would be so beneficial if we just let her. He also added how Robert never cared for him or anybody really, and he just tried to be the center of attention all the time. He cited his coming out, his announcement he was going to marry a woman, the birth of his child. It was ridiculous. He came out when Luke was a toddler, and for many years only our parents and grandparents knew. He announced he was going to marry his now wife through a text but didn't interfere or took from anybody. His child was born 4 months before Luke's graduation, and apparently that was a big issue for Luke that he never commented. Maybe I am biased, maybe I am selfish like Emma claims, but I call on his tantrum. Every single one of the cousins has been helped, babysat, tutored, gotten out of trouble, you name it, by Robert. He isn't perfect, but he isn't the conniving ass Luke is claiming. Maybe Luke has always felt inadequate and we didn't notice. Maybe it was his last-ditch effort. Maybe Emma has manipulated him so far that he can't come back. It doesn't matter anymore. If he does marry Emma, I wish him the best. If he doesn't, I hope he goes to therapy. Regardless of what he decides, he burned so many bridges and hurt so many people. I don't see this resolving anytime soon. For now, I will focus on my grandma and making her feel better. I feel extremely guilty because it was Emma's situation with me that opened this can of worms. I know I shouldn't, but it's hard not to. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, wow, it sounds like it is self-projection from Luke. He is the conniving he is saying Robert is. Edit. Internet stranger here also sends hugs to your grandma and your family in general. Opie. Robert is the type of older cousin Sarah would call if she is drunk at a party and needs a safe ride. He also did it for Luke, which is why I don't get his deal. Comment 2. Irrational behavior is called that because it can't be rationalized. Luke is exhibiting very irrational behavior, which is why you'll never understand it. The best you can hope for is that he gets some serious therapy and pulls his head out of his ass sooner rather than later. Opie. If he asked for help and apologized sincerely, I would be there in 2 seconds. He knew what he was doing when he spoke with Grandma. He knew it would cause her pain. He knew he would hurt Robert too. Robert might not be crying, but he feels bad about the situation. He has always looked out for everybody and even has pics of him holding every single one of us as babies all over one of his walls. I always knew they were not the closest of brothers. But this is too much. Comment 3. Was this really Luke's in her feelings coming out, or is this Emma poisoning him into isolating himself from his family and support system? Either way, he's a gigantic jerk. You, your grandma, and all your cousins should boycott this wedding. Opie. So far, nobody is going to his wedding. My parents are undecided about attending the ceremony, but they lean more on not attending. Update 3, November 4th, 2024. I want to start this by saying that Grandma is in better spirits now. I am overwhelmed by the amount of people supporting her and very grateful for it, even if it's online. I have talked about this on some chats and DMs, but please know the situation with Emma is not about her being parentified or her family being strict Catholics. It's just her being her. They were already going to get premarital counseling. An extra was added. Oh, all cousins also don't live in the same city or town. Some are a bit longer than others, but we keep in touch through the chat. The reason for the update is mainly to let people know Grandma is okay. Her health is fine, and she had a blast with my cousin Sarah. I also want to update on what has happened with the cousins and the maternal side of our family. Some of our paternal cousins from Grandma's side have relented and feel a bit bad on excluding Luke from things, so the compromise was met on he can be invited to everything, just don't force people to interact. These cousins are mainly on the older side and have soft spots for the youngsters. My youngest cousin Sarah said she was okay with it all, but she wanted them to keep him away from her since she can't stand him anymore. Our maternal side was a show because, of course, we need one. Some of them were very upset, but others told me I should try to understand where he was coming from. My mom was the one that told them everything, and some told her she is at fault for making Robert the star of the family. This was so uncalled for but brought some issues in my family. Particularly when one of my maternal cousins asked me if I could behave enough if I am seated at the same table as Luke for his wedding. It makes us doubt ourselves, but really, this is a cousin that Robert has bailed from almost bankruptcy 2 times, and he's the problem? I haven't said much about my sister, Lucy, since she voiced nothing different before. She was always very close to Luke and even had a great relationship with Emma before the debacle. She decided to be out of it because she was so disappointed. While she was never made to babysit or anything like that, she was always so into Luke since he was her baby brother. She loved him the most, and I know that because she literally told me when I was a kid. We have a good relationship now because her kids are my buddies, but it was rough for a while before that. She was upset about the whole thing, but when our maternal family, or at least a part, started excusing him, she lost it. She is a very calm person, the type you don't expect a bad word out of, but she lost it, and I think it was the last straw on the cold bucket for Luke. She sent a massive message about what has been happening, detailing every single thing and daring people to kind of come at her if they disagreed. She made sure to include every single nasty thing, every bad word, every eye roll. She sent it to so many people because she was tired of the half-information telephone game. She is upset at me because my refusals made this happen, and she said she knows she shouldn't, but she needs time to fix her feelings, so she is not speaking with me right now. My parents decided they were out of the wedding and told Luke he is on his own. There was never a monetary issue. They were willing to contribute, but both Luke and Emma are pretty well off and was no need for that. Now to what maybe most people want to know and the only conflict I am interested about anymore. My grandma is feeling better. Sarah being with her was very positive. It was lovely to see the eldest and youngest of our family so in tune, but then again, they have always been. She requested that Sarah invited Luke to her birthday party, December, and after a lot of back and forward, he is going to be invited. We will see if he comes or not. A small parenthesis. I showed my grandma the joke of the knife, sword, etc. She was so giddy, thank you. I mentioned before that Robert would pick up Sarah if she needed it. It is still true. What I might have not mentioned is that she of course gets a weird lecture from him and an even weirder lecture on how he rates certain drugs, lol. As I said, he is no saint, but he is not a jerk either. Lastly, yes, he has photos even with my sister or me in the newborn wall. People love to take pics of him holding the new family members, and he collected them and put them together when he got his own house. Now on to the next story. Story 7, Sister convinced our entire family to skip my wedding during her divorce by lying that I ruined her marriage. Now my parents want to share my baby with her because she's infertile. So, for some backstory, my sister, Pam, 30F, had convinced our parents and several of our relatives not to attend my wedding because I was getting married while she was getting divorced, and it did not sit right with her. Because the truth itself was not enough to turn people against me, she had resorted to telling lies about me and spreading rumors to convince people to stay away from the wedding. I, 27F, am in my second trimester of pregnancy right now, and my husband and I recently announced it on social media, which is how my parents and Pam found out about it. They reached out to me to mend things after almost 3 years of no contact. Their reason: Pam is infertile and unfortunately cannot have babies of her own. She has undergone several rounds of IVF so far, but none of them have yielded any results for her. And currently, she wants to keep trying because she doesn't think that adoption or surrogacy is the solution right now. They reached out to me because they feel like because I'm having a baby, it'll be good for me to fix things with my sister so she will be able to spend some time with a baby who is indirectly linked to her by blood. And they said that it would be good for me as well because the baby could have 2 mothers this way, and I would also have some help. My parents just wanted to play happy family right now because Pam cannot have a family of her own. It's as simple as that, and I was able to see right through their fake niceness on the phone call. So, I told them that I was not going to agree to their plan. It was totally deranged of them to expect me to agree to something like this. The fact that they had even thought that I would consider accepting them back into my life and allowing Pam to play mother and child with my future kid was just crazy talk. I told them if they wanted to make things right with me, they should have had the right intentions at least, and should have wanted to mend things because I'm their family and they had treated me badly, not because I'm having a baby and they want Pam to have a plaything. They took offense at that and told me that they were just offering to make things right because they knew that I would need all the help that I could get once I had the baby, and Pam was willing to volunteer for her future niece or nephew so she could spend more time with the baby, and it was all perfectly innocent, so I had no reason to be so harsh. But I told them that I was the mother, and I already had all the help that I needed from my husband and in-laws, and if they had found it easy to stay no contact with me so far, I would advise them to do so in the future as well. And here's where I might have been the a-hole. I told them that there was a reason why Pam could not get pregnant, and maybe the reason was that a terrible person like her would never make a good mother. After that phone call, I received a lot of messages from my parents and a couple of relatives, and of course from Pam herself. All of them have been telling me that I need to apologize because what I said was a horrible thing to say, and I don't need to kick people when they're already down. But the problem is, I still remember whatever happened before my wedding, and I really resent Pam for whatever she did. So it's difficult for me to feel sorry about what I said. For context, Pam had already been married for 2 years when I was getting married. She and her ex-husband had been together for 3 years before they got married, and she had always known that he wanted a child-free lifestyle. It was one of the first things that she had mentioned to our parents when they had been dating for a year and had actually started discussing their future. I remember being in the room at the time, but as usual, they were pretending that I wasn't there and going on with their conversation without me. That's another thing. Pam and I have never gotten along right since our childhood, but she has always been the darling daughter of our parents. We used to fight a lot when we were little, but with time we just learned to ignore each other. So that's what she was doing while she was telling our parents that he wanted a child-free lifestyle, but she knew for a fact that she wanted kids in the future. Eventually, it was decided that they would discuss this again when they got married, and hopefully by then she would have been able to change his mind. Unfortunately, she hadn't been able to change his mind, and when she started pushing him to have kids, they started fighting a lot. Whenever we would have family dinners, she would be very upset and constantly keep talking about how hard it was to stay with him. But I thought it was her fault for marrying a man who was not on the same page with her and had made it very clear to her in the beginning. She was the one who had believed that she would be able to change his mind, but now that she wasn't able to do that, she had no right to blame him. Of course, I didn't say any of that because I knew that it would just lead to more drama. Anyway, after a couple of months of trying to convince him, I heard from my parents that Pam had moved back in with them indefinitely and had left her husband's house because they had had a huge blow-up fight, and at this point there was no return from it. At the time, my husband and I had just started paying the deposits for our wedding, since we had been engaged for a couple of months. We had been together for almost 4 years before that, and we had honestly only been waiting to be in decent places in our respective careers before we got married. But we had been ready for marriage for quite some time before that. So, when my parents informed me that Pam and her husband were heading for divorce, they also told me that they wanted me to push back my wedding indefinitely because they did not want me to hurt my sister's feelings by getting married around the same time that she was getting divorced. It was already difficult enough for her because now she had to put her plans of having a baby on hold as well, and she really wanted to be a mother. They wanted me to spare her feelings by not getting married, and that was probably the most insensitive and stupid thing that they had ever tried to do at that point. Obviously, I said that I was not going to do any of that, and I was getting married with or without Pam's support. She and I were never close anyway, so I didn't care how she felt about my wedding. But my parents did not like the idea of me not prioritizing their darling daughter's feelings over my wedding and told me that if I did not postpone it, they would not be attending either. That was really hurtful and shocking for me because I knew that they had a soft corner for Pam, but I didn't know that they would be ready to do something like this for her. However, I made my peace with that, too, and I told them that they were free to do whatever they wanted. That should have been the end of it. But Pam decided that she was not happy about me getting married and decided to take it upon herself to make sure that the rest of the family did not attend my wedding either. At first, she was only telling people that it was insensitive of me to be getting married while she was going through something so horrible and trying to gain sympathy, but most people only sympathized with her. They did not actually say that they were going to not attend my wedding. So, she realized that she had to step up her game, as she wanted people to actually actively boycott my wedding. And like I said, since the truth was not controversial enough, she decided to start spreading rumors about me. She started telling people that I was the one who had been convincing her husband to leave her because apparently I was jealous of her and I couldn't stand the fact that she was going to become a mother before me. The rumors themselves were quite ridiculous because I had never been friends with her husband. I don't think she would have even married him if he had been close with me at any point. But I don't know why, for some reason, people started to believe her. She even started telling them that I had been rubbing it in her face all along how I had manipulated him to leave her and convince him that he had a better life waiting out there for him. Apparently, it was also my fault that he did not want to become a father because I was the one who had told him that a child-free lifestyle was the way to go in this generation. It was all a bunch of lies. I had hardly ever interacted with my brother-in-law while he had been married to Pam, but I guess she lied with such conviction that people started to believe her, and when I sent out the invitations, many people declined. I already knew why they were declining since a couple of cousins and other family members who had been on my side had told me what Pam had been saying about me. So I was not surprised to see that nobody had mentioned any reasons. The only family members of mine who had been present at my wedding were a handful of cousins and a few others. Everyone else was either a friend or a coworker, but the attendance of the bride's side of the family was just sad. I remember being very upset about all of this in the weeks leading up to the wedding, and I knew that I could talk to people about the truth and try to tell them, but they had already made up their minds, and a couple of them had even blocked me. Besides, it would just be my word against hers, so I didn't even bother. Thankfully, on the day of the wedding, at least I had my husband, my friends, and my in-laws to cheer me up, and they made sure that I had so much fun that I hardly even cared that so many members of my family were not attending. But even then, just because I had fun on the day of my wedding, it doesn't mean that I have forgiven Pam for what she did back then. What she did was crazy and cruel, and it was very typical of her to make sure that I was not happy just because she wasn't able to get her way about something. That's just how she had been right from our childhood, but most people grow out of their childhood habits, especially when they are in their late 20s, but I guess I can't say the same for her. So, I had completely cut her and my parents off after that incident, and I started resenting them even more. A year later, when I ran into Pam's ex-husband for the first time after their divorce, I remember my husband and I had been out for lunch one day, and there we saw Pam's ex-husband having lunch with a couple of his coworkers. It was a bit awkward, and we didn't think that he would greet us, but he came over to our table that day and congratulated us on our wedding and apologized for not attending. But that was just because of the situation between him and my sister. Since he was making small talk, we were polite to him as well, and my husband ended up joking that he might as well have shown up since my sister ended up not attending. At that point, he started looking very confused, and that's how we got to talking about what had happened around the time of the wedding. Apparently, she had kept pushing back the dates of the mediation session so as to delay the whole divorce process. And the excuse that she had been using was that she was too busy with my wedding prep. which is why her ex-husband had looked very confused when he found out that she hadn't even attended. He himself had been quite shocked that she was taking such an interest in my wedding all of a sudden, but he didn't want to confront her and outright accuse her of trying to delay the finalization of the divorce because she was scared of leaving him, so he just dealt with it as patiently as he could. After he told us this, we told him what had actually happened around the time of the wedding and why she hadn't attended and how she had spread all those rumors about me convincing him to leave her and stuff. He was actually shocked that Pam had done any of this. And then we found out the real reason that they had gotten divorced. It was not just because he did not want kids and she wanted to be a mother. It was much deeper than that. We knew that they had been fighting for months over this topic, and her ex-husband told us that after a while he had started considering her perspective as well, and it almost changed his mind. But then on the day that he decided to talk to her about it, she told him something that made him change his mind about being with her in the first place. Apparently, after he had told her that he was finally ready to consider having a baby, she was overjoyed, and then she joked that even if he hadn't been ready, he would have had to come to terms with it at some point in the near future anyway. When he asked her to elaborate, she told him that she had apparently stopped taking her birth control pills and she had never told him about it. If they had continued that way, at some point she might have gotten pregnant, and then her plan was to just have him deal with it, which is really just so twisted that I can't even begin to process it. Obviously, after she told him that he could not stay with her. That's what their last fight had actually been about, but she had lied to us and told us that they had just been fighting about whether they wanted to have kids or not. Once again, she had tried to make it all sound like a joke, but it didn't take away from the seriousness of what she was actually trying to do, which was essentially just trying to baby trap him so that he would absolutely have to come to terms with the pregnancy whenever it happened. After that conversation with her ex-husband, both my husband and I got a lot of clarity as to why she had been acting so crazy during the time of the wedding, because she knew that she was getting divorced because of her own fault. Even if she had done the stupid thing with the pills and stuff, she could have just kept her mouth shut, and then none of that would have been happening, and she would have been having a baby with her husband. But unfortunately, she messed it all up for herself and then she took it out on me. After learning all of that, my hatred and resentment against her increased even more. I could have reached out to my parents and my relatives and told everyone about it, but I did not because by then I was already not speaking to anybody who had chosen not to attend my wedding, and honestly at that point I just wanted to move on. So, I decided to keep my mouth shut and go on with my life. But anyway, my hatred for her runs deep, and honestly, that's the real reason why I don't really feel sorry about what I said. To be honest, I really do believe that it's a good thing that she has not been able to become a mother so far, because I seriously doubt that with her psycho tendencies she'll be able to do a good job of it. And I also do think that it's quite creepy of her and my parents to try and reach out to me just because I'm pregnant and they want to play happy family with my kid. Now, it's just not happening. And as for my baby having two mothers, I really don't think that's necessary. Even my husband and my in-laws agree. But the only reason I'm having second thoughts is because of the way that everyone has reacted to this statement that I made, including some of the people that I have actually been on good terms with. So, Aita for saying that the reason my sister hasn't been able to get pregnant yet is because she won't be able to be a good mother? Edit. So, for those people who were asking, no, Pam has not remarried, and neither is she dating anybody at the moment, at least not to my knowledge. I don't know much about her personal life, but from whatever I have gathered from my friends and family, she is completely single, and the only thing that she wants right now is to be a mother. As for why she doesn't want to consider adoption or surrogacy, it's anybody's guess. Personally, I really think it's because she's the kind of person who thinks that unless you have given birth to the baby yourself, it's not really your kid. I mean, she has been trying for almost 3 years now, including the time that she was trying to get pregnant with her husband, and after her divorce she had been trying IVF with donors, but nothing has worked for her so far. At this point, most people would start looking at other options because clearly something is not going right with her, but well, that's not what she wants, and that's fine. However, on the other hand, I do think it's very weird that she and my parents chose to try and reconcile with me after I announced my pregnancy, and that two-mother statement has really stayed with me. You guys also picked up on the fact that they had specifically mentioned that this baby of mine would be linked to her by blood. That's partly true. She is my biological sister, so I guess her niece and nephew would be a future blood relation. I just think it's a weird thing to bring up while trying to reconcile with somebody, and I don't know, their behavior just gave off major baby stealer vibes. I feel like even if I actually do entertain the idea of forgiving her and allowing her to interact with my baby, she's gonna start projecting and acting like the mother herself, and I can't have that happening. Anyway, some of you were also asking why I haven't spoken up about the real reason she and her husband got divorced and why I haven't defended myself in front of the rest of the family yet. I just don't think it's worth it, that's all. After the wedding, I learned who my real friends were and who was actually going to be there for me and the family. I was very upset about it for a while, and I didn't think that I should speak up about what the real reasons were, but I chose not to because I wanted my peace and quiet right now. Even a couple of the people that I am on good terms with in the family have told me that what I said to Pam about her not being able to become a mother was kind of insensitive. They're not really harping on about it and demanding that I apologize, but they do think that it was a bit too far, and that's why I'm concerned, because these people have always stayed by my side throughout, and if they are also of the opinion that I was a little too harsh, I guess I have cause for concern. Update 1. Thank you so much to everybody who commented on my post. I guess most of you guys were of the opinion that I am NTA, and I'm really grateful for that. I have decided not to apologize to Pam and my parents, and I'm going to continue ignoring them. They are obviously not happy about it, and they are playing the victim on social media and in real life by talking rubbish about me to my relatives once again. But that's really not going to affect me because the people who are talking crap about me I already don't speak to them. What's the worst that could happen? They're going to cut me off even more, right? I'm not really worried about that. As for the people in the family who have been on my side but did not like what I had said, I chose to speak to them and address whatever I had said because Pam and my parents are making a huge deal out of this statement, and pretty much the entire family knows about what happened and what I said. I'm not going to interact with anybody who I'm not on good terms with, so I chose to reach out to the people who actually met me, and I told them that whatever I had said, it had been said in the heat of the moment that I can't deny. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that whatever Pam had done to me all those years ago while I was getting married just so that she would be of attention, it was much worse because that was all pre-planned. That did not happen in the heat of the moment. She has treated me with nothing but cruelty and disrespect throughout these years, and I refuse to be apologetic for something that I said, which might even be true. At least me saying these things is not going to affect her in the way that her spreading rumors about me did. Like, my family actually refused to attend my wedding because of the things that she said. It's not like my opinion is going to actually hamper her hopes of getting pregnant in the future, so it's not the same thing. And my relatives seem to understand that. So, the people who were on my side are still on my side and have decided that they're not going to talk about this at all. I'm fine with that. To be honest, I only want my pregnancy journey to be a happy and healthy one, and I want Pam and my parents to wrap up the drama as quickly as they can. I would really hate for them to keep dragging this out because then I'm going to have to bring out some facts and they're not going to like that, and I really don't want to be caught up in stuff like this right now, especially when I'm pregnant. Update 2. So, it has been 2 whole weeks since I last spoke to my parents on the phone, and 2 weeks since they have been playing the victim and telling everybody in the family about what I said. They have been begging everybody to boycott me, to never speak to me again, and to encourage even the people in the family who are currently on good terms with me to cut me off. Basically, they want their entire family to ostracize me, but as I said, I was able to manage to sort things out with the people who were on good terms with me, so they haven't been able to succeed. Obviously, they did not like that, so they took to posting on social media against me, and while they haven't mentioned me by name, I know that most of their posts are about me. They've been talking about a particular person in the family who has always tried to ruin people's lives, who has always been jealous of Pam, and that's why I made fun of her infertility. While they were posting about these things, I didn't really care because I knew that none of that was true. But then recently, they posted that I had been the one to ruin Pam's marriage, and that really got to me because once again, they were spreading the same lies that they had around the time of my wedding, and this time I decided to hit back. I spoke to my ex-brother-in-law. We haven't really kept in touch, but we do wish each other on birthdays and holidays, so at least we are on speaking terms. I filled him in on everything that was going on, and I asked him if it would be fine with him for me to post about the situation, and he told me to go ahead. So I did. I posted about what Pam had tried to do and the real reason behind their divorce, and now the drama has hit the ceiling. I haven't really gotten involved in it personally, but I have been receiving lots of texts, emails, and phone calls from everybody in the family asking me if it's true, telling me to take it down. And some people are even accusing me of spreading and lying about Pam once again. But I haven't responded or been engaging. My parents and Pam have been really quiet, so I know that they have nothing to say, but I'm sure that they'll find their words soon enough. It's just surprising that even after all of this, nobody has bothered to apologize to me from the family. But that's exactly what I expect from people like them, so it's fine. I don't really care. My main goal was to expose Pam for the kind of person that she is, and I think that I have succeeded in doing that. So now I'm just going to lay back and watch what happens. Update 3. So, it has been a couple of days since my last post, and today Pam and my parents finally reached out to me and told me that they were ready to apologize to me, only if I would take that post down. Apparently, even though the rest of the family has not apologized to me, they have, in fact, reached out to them and called them out on their behavior. They claim that it's really wrong of them to paint me in a bad light when all along it was Pam who was responsible for the divorce and not me. They have been lying to everyone in the family for years now, and it has ruined my relationship with them. It's surprising that people from my family were so quick to jump from the hate on me bandwagon to the hate on Pam bandwagon. But well, like I said, I don't expect any better from these people who were so quick to believe that I was the one who had been responsible for ruining Pam's marriage. Of course, now they're going to believe that she was the one who did it herself, but they're still not going to apologize to me. Most of them have stopped texting me, and now nobody wants to know if I was telling the truth, and nobody expects me to take that post down either. Anyway, I told my parents and Pam that I was not taking that post down until I felt like it. Now, at this point, their apologies meant less than nothing to me. They had reached out to me via email, so I sent that message to them and I blocked them. After that, they did not contact me, but this morning I decided to take that post down because I did not want to ruin the sanctity of my social media by posting about these irrelevant people. Like I said, I wanted to have a happy and healthy pregnancy journey, and getting revenge on people who don't even matter to me anymore is not conducive to that kind of thing. And they are the kind of people that they are. I think that's punishment enough for them. My husband and I are happy, I have friends and family that care about me, and that's all that I really want. It hardly matters to me what my parents and my sister are up to, and after this episode, I'm hoping that they will realize that I really don't want anything to do with them in the future and stay away from me. Anyway, that's about it from my side, and I don't think that they're going to reach out to me anytime soon after what has just happened, so I guess this is it. Thank you to everybody who has responded to my updates and supported me and advised me on my posts. That really means a lot to me. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Hosted a dinner to celebrate my promotion, but my stepmom brought my strange stepsister, and she announced her pregnancy even though she knew I was infertile. F32. Hosted a dinner party for family recently to celebrate my new promotion. I was very happy and proud of myself because I earned this after slaving away at my corporate job for months. Only my partner, Keith, M37, knows how hard I have worked for it. But what was meant to be a celebration of my success, hosted by me, ultimately became about something else. Now, everyone is after me because they think I'm cruel and vindictive and don't understand the value of family. I grew up in a blended family. My biological mother left my dad for her boss when I was just 2 years old, so she has never been a part of my life. It has been dad and me for the longest time, and I am not complaining. My mom never tried to reach out, and while a lot of my family thought that I would want to seek her out when I grew up, that was not true at all. I have no desire to meet my biological mother or reconnect with her. Even though my stepmother and I don't see eye to eye, I have never had a real maternal figure in my life. Not in my mother and not in my stepmother, and 53F. Dad married her when I was already old enough to have begun navigating life without a mother. And there was always resistance from both sides to accept each other as family. As a child, I used to look at my friends with complete families, siblings, and cousins, and I would feel very envious and rejected that I was not given this luxury. However, I just accustomed myself to my own reality, and since then, coping with life has become easier. My Aunt Rosa, Dad's sister, tried her best to cultivate that bond with me, and I am very grateful for everything that she has done for me. But, and I mean this in the least hurtful way possible, an aunt is not a mother. I don't blame my dad for anything, though. I think he did the best that he could, and even though when I was a kid and a teenager I didn't like a lot of things that he did and we fought a lot over silly issues, as an adult I realized the enormous sacrifices he has made for me. The family dynamics were out of my control to a very large extent, and they were out of his control, but we managed. Dad married, and when I was 15 years old, even though they had been together for a while before that. He had repeatedly asked me if I was okay with him remarrying, and I know for sure that had I said no, he wouldn't have gone ahead with it. But by then, I knew that despite I not having a very good relationship, she made him happy. I also knew that both of us loved Dad enough to be cordial to each other and make the family work somehow. While he was dating her, he had introduced her to me. In the initial few months of us knowing each other, she had overstepped her boundaries multiple times. I think she assumed that since I never had a mother, I would automatically take her as my maternal figure, and she tried very hard to fill that gap, so to speak. But I had been without a mother for so long that I didn't really understand what it meant to have one. Any attempt of hers to discipline me or exert authority while they were dating and not married was met with a lot of hostility from my side. I could have behaved better in hindsight, but I was a rebellious teenager, and to me, I was doing the best that I could. It became clear to her that I was not interested in a mother, and that the only way this could work was if we tolerated each other's presence and got along for Dad's sake. This arrangement worked after their wedding, for the first few months at least. And I seriously and genuinely believe that it would have gotten better and the family would have been tighter, so to speak, if Stephanie hadn't come. Stephanie, now F36, is my stepsister and Anne's daughter. Dad had no idea about her when he married Anne, and had never shared it with him. I don't blame her for it because it was a hard thing to talk about for her. Stephanie was the result of a teen pregnancy that Anne had had with a man who was much, much older than her. She was groomed and then forced to carry the pregnancy to term. She was essentially a kid herself when she became a mother, and the only reason she agreed to carry the pregnancy to term was that she was assured by her abuser and his family that they would take up the entire responsibility of the kid and she would not have to be involved. Thankfully for her, they did not back out, so she had her daughter, and the daughter went to her biological father and lived there all her life, and had no contact with her groomer and her daughter. She changed her city as soon as she turned 18, when Stephanie was 1 year old. She never had any contact with her and never disclosed this part of her past with anyone. According to her, she told Dad, and Dad told me, that even her friends from college and work do not know about her daughter because she doesn't consider herself a mother in any dimension of the word. I don't know if this is how she thought to cope, but I guess she felt that since she had no contact with her daughter, if she stopped mentioning her, maybe she would cease to exist in her mind. Unfortunately, that was not what God had planned for her. 6 months after her wedding to Dad, Stephanie showed up at home. I was the one who opened the door, and one look at her and I realized that I didn't like her. She was reeking of alcohol and frankly, she looked like a drug addict. She would have been 19 at that point, so I really don't know why she came looking for mommy as an adult. I don't know what happened after that because I was left out of all family discussions regarding her. All I do remember is that she stayed with us for a while, and Dad, Anne, and used to have long discussions late into the night for a couple of days. I think 2 weeks after her arrival. She had been living with us for that entire duration. Dad came to my room and said that he wanted to talk to me. He told me that Stephanie would be living with us for a while longer until they could try and do something to get her life on track. I couldn't believe my ears. Even at that age, I knew that girl was a disaster and that she should not be in the house. I told Dad that that was really unfair, but he told me that he could not turn her away, knowing that she is Anne's family and that she needs help. He then told me the entire backstory of Stephanie and Anne. He said that Stephanie's biological father had passed away, and she had no real family left anymore, which is why she had come looking for her mom. It would be very unfair to her if they turned her back and didn't help her out. I hated to admit it, but I knew he was right. That's the thing about Dad. He is a good man, and even though he didn't sign up for any of this, even if he had been lied to by omission, he would never do the wrong thing. He knew that it was important for him and Anne as adults to be there for Stephanie, and even though this came as a huge shock to him, a bigger shock than it was to me in all honesty, he did not back down from doing the right thing. And that is how, at the age of 15 years, I got a 19-year-old sister with whom I shared absolutely no affinity. Living with Stephanie was difficult, to say the least. The adjustment was hard on everyone, and added to this was the fact that the newest family member was an absolute brat. She was thoroughly entitled from the day she set foot inside the house. She thought that and would be fawning over her in guilt and that she would have everyone wrapped around her finger. It was true to some extent, and tried to manage her tantrums because she felt guilty about abandoning her daughter and involving my dad in this mess. Dad tolerated her nonsense because he felt that she was a troubled child and needed good parental figures to guide her and bring her on the correct path. I was the only one who had absolutely zero tolerance for Stephanie's antics, and because of that, the entire family dynamic gradually changed. The only balancing factor in the house was Dad, and even Stephanie had begun to listen to him and behave around him, and had a miraculous motherly transformation, and she just attached herself to Stephanie. Both of them together started singling me out for not playing into the entire happy family trope. And I never played into it because I just could not stand Stephanie. She had no job. She was doing nothing with her life. All she would do was sit at home and blast loud music all day. Dad used to go to work, and it was only Anne and her in the house. When I came back from school, she would just go nuts. It became extremely difficult for me to even function like a normal human being in the house. I tried to tolerate it as much as I could, but I finally reached my breaking point and spoke to Dad about it. He told me that I should have come sooner. That night, he told Stephanie that it had been more than 6 months of her living with us, and that she needed to either find a job soon or look at higher education. She looked as if somebody had slapped her square in the face. I really don't know why she thought she was allowed to rot away and Dad would fund her entire life. But she did, and tried to cut in and take a stand for Stephanie. But Dad was having none of it. He didn't take my name in the discussion because he didn't want them to feel like I was poisoning him. He told Stephanie that she had a month to look for a job and that he would help her. But it was time she got her act together. To no one's surprise, she did not get her act together at all. There was no job by the end of the month, and at the 6-week mark, Dad reminded her again. A few weeks after that, she came home with the announcement that she was pregnant, and was overjoyed. God alone knows why. But Dad had had enough. He told her that he was not willing to fund her and now her child any longer, and that she was on her own. Stephanie probably had expected the exact opposite of this. She had thought that, because of the pregnancy, Dad would stop being so hard on her. I actually overheard her say this to Anne, and tried to butt in and take her side, but I think Dad had reached his breaking point too. There was nothing else to be done any longer, and Stephanie had no option but to leave the house. I finally had some peace and quiet after about a year of her nonsense, but things always remained strained between Anne and me and Dad and after that. Once she had gone, I got no news of Stephanie, not that I was interested in it anyway. She probably was in touch with Anne and Dad, but I can't be sure. I never asked and they never told me. 2 years later, I went off to college in a different state, and things improved drastically for me. I went low contact with Anne and only stayed connected to Dad. That wasn't a problem for him, and he never forced me to maintain a connection with Anne. But boy, she became hostile whenever I went home for vacations. She would be snarky and rude, as if she didn't want me around. There was never any open conflict between us, and I tolerated her for Dad's sake. But things were way worse than before. In all honesty, we just couldn't stand each other anymore. It was palpable to everyone around us, and the air would be thick with tension whenever I went home, so I just stopped going. I used to call Dad over or go on trips, and that was that. To me, peace of mind was more important than being in that house, so I just chose that. Then I got busy with my job and life and completely fell out of touch with Anne. Whatever I knew of her was via Dad. The promotion dinner. 2 days ago, I hosted a party. I got a huge promotion at work, and it is kind of a big deal, and I wanted to celebrate with everyone. I called Dad, and Aunt Rosa, her husband Mike, and their son Noel. Keith and I lived together, so he was obviously there. It was supposed to be an intimate get-together of family members I am close to. I invited, and out of courtesy. I am too old now to keep bad blood between us. However, in hindsight, I was a fool to expect the same maturity from her because she overstepped her boundaries so majorly that I think even Dad is never going to see her face again. What shocked me was that and walked in with Stephanie. Now, I have had no contact with this woman for over 15 years, and I just could not fathom how anyone thought that bringing her along would be a good idea. I looked at my dad in disbelief and pulled him aside while Keith tried to lighten the mood. I asked him why she was here, and he said that and had told him that I had specifically invited Stephanie. I was furious, and I wanted both Anne and Stephanie to leave right away. I decided against it because I did not want to create a scene, but if I'm being honest, I should have gone ahead with kicking them out. I tried to diffuse the situation, I really did, and Anne and Stephanie were behaving for the most part, so I even got a little comfortable with the entire situation. All through dinner, everyone asked me about my promotion, my work, and the like, except Stephanie. She sat there pouting and sulking, but I didn't pay much heed to her, as did no one else. I was actually relieved that she wasn't talking much because I had no desire to interact with her anyway. So, all in all, thankfully the dinner went well, but I had no idea what was waiting for me at the end of it. Just as we were about to get up, Anne got up and said that she had a special announcement to make. Before I could even react, she literally squealed. She's 53, and honestly, that was so embarrassing, and revealed that Stephanie was expecting a baby. Everyone in the room went dead silent. All the people that were present, except Stephanie, probably knew that I had had lots of fertility struggles, and I was told only a year ago after multiple tests that I would never be able to have biological children. The news about Steph's pregnancy honestly felt like a slap to my face, and it felt as though all the pride of the day was sucked out. I tried to put on a brave face and congratulated her, but Dad literally hissed at Anne and told her to sit down. She tried to start some drama over Dad's reaction, but Null butted in and said something along the lines of, "Why are you even excited, Anne? Isn't this like her 6th kid?" I genuinely spat my water out and looked at Anne with wide eyes. She started yelling at Null, but Aunt Rosa got up to defend him, and it all became a huge mess in my house, where I couldn't even get a single word of what they were saying. In a couple of minutes, I had had enough, and I told all of them that I wanted them to leave and that they could not come into my house and disrespect me when I was the one hosting them. I then turned to Steph and told her that I had not invited her, and even if her mother had lied to her, she should have had the common sense to understand that it possibly could not have been me who was extending an invitation or an olive branch, because we never liked each other and we hadn't spoken to each other in over 15 years. To my utter amazement, she started crying, saying that I was just jealous of her fertility because I could never have kids of my own. I hate to admit it, but that one statement stung more than anything I have ever heard before. Thankfully, I kept my cool. I then told her that I was glad I had made something of myself and worked hard to create a name, so that my only achievement was not out kids the minute I could get pregnant. I don't think anyone had expected me to say something so vicious, and before I could say anything, Anne slapped me in front of everyone. She slapped me so hard that my head hurt. I don't exactly remember what happened in the next 2 minutes, but all I know is that by the time I had centered myself, everyone was out of the house, and Keith was sitting beside me, apologizing for letting things escalate so much. I told him it wasn't his fault, but the entire situation has taken a huge toll on me. Dad has reached out to me, and so have Aunt Rosa, Uncle Mike, and Null, but I haven't responded to anyone other than Null. I am just not in the right headspace to talk to anyone right now. It's not just that they shat all over my party and achievements. They rubbed me the wrong way by poking fun at and mocking my biggest vulnerability, and then proceeded to assault me in my own home. And I know Dad is not to blame for this because he could not have anticipated or controlled it, but I am still disappointed that he didn't do anything to defend me in front of everyone when Steph tried to make the day all about herself. Heck, it was Null, who was still a kid, by the way, who had the guts to stand up to her and call her out publicly. I am too shaken by whatever has happened, and I don't think I will be talking to anyone in the family as of now. I just hope and pray that this chapter closes now and that I don't have to deal with Anne or Stephanie again. Update 1: The miscarriage accusation. You guys were right, and I should have known better. This is so not over. I had never outright hated Anne and Steph, but I just didn't like them. What they have resorted to now, however, conveniently puts them in the category of crazy, lying psychopaths who need to be kept away from humanity for its betterment. I have never met a worse duo of lying scums, and God knows why Anne has become blind to the antics of her daughter. She used to be sane, but now it seems like Steph controls her with the twiddle of her thumb. It's a sorry state of affairs for Anne, and I feel bad for her. She has lost all her individuality for a child who does not care two hoots about her. A week after the party, I had still not replied to anyone, so I had no idea what was going on. And then Stephanie came to my house. Keith opened the door and did not even invite them in. Steph started screaming at the door, saying that she wanted to talk to me and that I had ruined her life completely. I heard the screaming and rushed to the door, where Stephanie was crying. and said that I had committed the most unpardonable sin and that they needed me to pay for it. I told them they were out of their minds if they thought that I would entertain them for even a second after they slapped me in my own home, and told me that I had to pay for my sins and that they knew I had spiked Stephanie's food, which had caused her to miscarry. I could not help but laugh at the bizarre accusation. I told them that Stephanie had come unannounced and uninvited, and I had zero idea that she was expecting. How could I have magically procured a substance, spiked her food, and caused her to miscarry when I had no idea that she would be coming and that too pregnant? They just said that they knew it was me and there was no other way that something like this could have happened. And guys, I lost my cool and kept on saying that I had to pay for my sins and whatnot. Keith asked her what she meant by pay, and she meant literal payment. She wanted me to give money to her useless child, who was probably faking an abortion and maybe even the entire pregnancy. I was furious and tired at the same time. I told them that I had enough money and that I would pay them whatever sum they wanted if they could prove that I was the one who caused the abortion. I told them to have a look at the CCTV footage and see for themselves. That was when they knew that their bluff was called, and they started squirming in their shoes. And the thing is, I am a lawyer. I know when a person is lying. That's literally my entire job. I knew they had been caught and that there was no miscarriage. There probably was no baby either. I then told them that they needed to go with me to the hospital right now and confirm the abortion, or I would press charges against both of them, on Ann for assault and trespassing and on Stephanie for trespassing and harassment. Guys, you should have seen the way they tried to flee. Keith and I ran after them and we took them to the hospital. Both of them were in tears by the time we reached and were begging us not to go ahead with it, and had the audacity to say that I was tormenting her poor daughter more after what I had done. I told her to shut her trap because her poor daughter was a grown-ass woman of 36, and she needed to stop playing the victim every chance she got. The test took some time, but at the end of it, I knew what the result would be. Stephanie was not pregnant and she had been faking it the entire time. I don't know whether I felt rage or smug. I just knew that I wanted both of them out of sight that very minute. I thought I would need to down an entire bottle of wine to deal with all that had happened. When we sat in the car, Keith told me to send a text and the reports to everyone detailing what had actually happened. He said that it was time to expose them completely and cut them off for good. I have done just that and I feel so much relief. I know now that they won't have the guts to get in touch with me again. I think I'm going to go no contact with Dad too. I just feel that he is somehow responsible for inviting all this mess into my life, and even if he isn't at fault, I don't want to deal with him right now. I have faced assault and harassment, and an achievement of mine has been ground to dust because of the antics of his wife and her daughter. I can't help but feel mad at him. He was the one who allowed Stephanie inside my house. He could have asked me whether I had actually invited her or not. He could have cross-checked, but it was easier for him to feign convenience, and it just hurts me a lot. I know I am not going to tolerate any more of their drama, and if they try to as much as knock at my door again, I will just get a restraining order against them. I don't care if I burn every single bridge with the family, but I just don't have it in me to deal with this anymore. Update 2. The divorce and aftermath. For all those who were hoping for a dramatic update, I have some news for you. Dad has filed for divorce from Ann. After he got to know what the mother-daughter had done, he was furious and threw Ann out of the house. I had a very long talk with him, and both of us got very emotional. In the fight with Ann, she revealed that she had known all along that Stephanie wasn't pregnant, but she already had 5 kids. None of the baby daddies stayed. Yes, all of them are different. But Dad thinks they paid child support and she could not hold a job for long, and thought that if they tried this drama, they could try and get money out of me, which would help Steph out. She told Dad that both of them had resorted to this only because I had chosen to sever ties, and they knew that if they asked like family, I would not have helped Stephanie out. Well, of course I wouldn't have helped her out. Her brood is not my responsibility. This is why they had hatched this elaborate plan to basically extort money from me, and justified herself by saying that since I could never have kids and had had a promotion, all the extra money could actually go to someone in need. Dad told her that this was my hard-earned money, and I could even wipe my crap with it if I wanted, and I didn't owe anyone anything. They had had a huge fight wherein Ann kept defending Stephanie and refused to take accountability for her actions while deflecting the entire blame to me. That was when Dad realized that there was no point in talking to her. She was beyond any level of sanity, and there was no redeeming what she did. He told her that he would be filing for divorce and asked her to move out. He apologized profusely, telling me that he could never forgive himself for what he allowed to take place. I told him that it wasn't entirely his fault, but that I needed some time to get over the entire ordeal and bring myself back to normalcy. The last few weeks had been very draining for me. I was actually looking forward to relaxing a little bit after my promotion, but this entire family drama just did not let that happen. Aunt Rosa and Uncle Mike called me and offered me support. They actually encouraged me to press charges, but at this point, I just want this mess to be over and live in peace. They have been very understanding of the situation, and that is all that I expected from anyone, in all honesty. I have no idea what Stephanie is doing and how she is managing, but she and Ann have had a falling out because Ann now blames her for the breakdown of her marriage. It's honestly a show, if you ask me, and I have asked everyone to leave me out of it. I have gone no contact with Dad as well for the time being, and even Aunt and Uncle know that they don't have to talk about the Ann and Dad situation with me. That's the biggest win that I could have asked for in this situation, and I'm just glad that this is over. Hopefully, this will be my last update because I don't have it in me to tolerate even a single moment more of this. Thanks and goodbye for good. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Mom didn't invite me to her wedding, so I showed up uninvited and crashed it. Hi everyone, I am Lindsay, 21F, and I need some suggestions. So, let's rewind a bit to where it all started. My parents, Mom, Marge, 46F, and Dad, Sebastian, 48M, were like the typical 80s couple. He was the laid-back guy who loved his music, and she was the go-getter who worked hard and wanted everything done yesterday. They met in college, fell in love, and before long they had me. I was their first kid, and as far back as I can remember, there was always this kind of simmering tension between them. Dad was the kind of guy who had big dreams and aspirations but was also prone to bouts of anxiety and depression. He was always a bit of a daydreamer, and while that's great in theory, it often left him feeling overwhelmed when things didn't go according to plan. He'd get these intense episodes where everything felt like it was closing in on him, and he'd just shut down. It was like watching someone drown in slow motion, and as a kid, I didn't really understand what was happening. Mom, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of energy. She was ambitious, driven, and had this almost unrelenting need for control. She was a natural organizer and wanted everything to be perfect, and that included our family life. Her patience for Dad's struggles was, let's say, pretty limited. Instead of offering support, she'd often make snide comments about how Dad was lazy or unmotivated, which obviously didn't help his mental health at all. I remember one time she said in front of me, if he spent as much time actually doing something as he does worrying about it, we'd probably have a yacht by now. It was awkward because I could see how much Dad was trying to keep it together. He'd put on this brave face, but you could tell he was hurting, and Mom's remarks, though maybe not meant to be cruel, felt like she was just pushing him further down. I guess in her defense, she had her own pressures and expectations, and she didn't know how to deal with Dad's issues in a constructive way. As a kid, I always felt like I was walking on eggshells around Mom. She had this critical streak that made me second-guess myself all the time. I'd bring home a report card with mostly A's and a single B, and she'd zero in on the B, saying things like, "Well, you could have done better if you actually tried." It wasn't that she didn't care, she did, but her way of showing it was often through criticism rather than encouragement. I think she thought she was motivating me, but it just ended up making me feel inadequate. So, growing up, I got this mixed message from both parents. Dad was this loving guy who could be incredibly supportive, but when he was down, he was really down. And Mom was always there, pushing me to do better, but never quite satisfied. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, I could never quite meet her expectations. The tension at home grew over the years, and the cracks in their relationship became more visible. Dad's mental health issues were always there, but they seemed to worsen as time went on. Mom's frustration with him only added to his stress, and it seemed like a vicious cycle. She would have these outbursts, and Dad would retreat further into his shell. Their arguments would get pretty intense, and I'd often find myself caught in the middle, trying to mediate or just stay out of the way. Eventually, things came to a head. I was about 14 when they finally decided to separate. I remember the day clearly. There was this huge fight that started with something small, like who was supposed to take out the trash, and it escalated into a full-blown screaming match. The house was tense, and I could feel the energy shift. After that, Mom sat me down and told me that they were getting a divorce. It was surreal. I'd heard them argue before, but hearing that they were separating felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Mom's reasons were always about Dad's inability to cope with life and how his mental health issues were just too much for her to handle. Dad was devastated. He tried to put on a brave face, but it was clear how much it was hurting him. I tried to stay neutral, but I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. I was angry at Mom for her harshness and at Dad for not being able to fix things, but mostly, I felt lost. The separation wasn't easy. Mom moved out and found a new place, and Dad stayed in the house, which was both familiar and strangely empty without her. We did the whole back and forth thing for a while, which was emotionally draining. I'd spend weekends with Mom and the rest of the time with Dad. It felt like my world was split in two, and neither side felt like home anymore. Then, a few months after their separation, something happened that turned everything upside down. Dad committed suicide. It was a shock, to say the least. I don't know if you can ever really prepare for something like that. One minute you're trying to navigate a new normal, and the next you're hit with the devastating news that someone you love is gone forever. It was a dark time. Dad's passing left a gaping hole in my life, and I was struggling to come to terms with it. I remember feeling a mix of anger and confusion. Anger at him for leaving us, and confusion over how to deal with this overwhelming grief. Mom was obviously devastated, too, but her way of coping was to try and maintain a semblance of normalcy. She threw herself into work and her social life, trying to keep busy to avoid dealing with the pain. Then, as if things weren't complicated enough, Mom started seeing someone new. It was a few months after Dad's death when she introduced her new boyfriend to me. At first, I was hopeful that this new relationship might bring some stability into her life. Maybe she'd find happiness again, and it would help us all move forward. However, she soon broke up with him. A few years ago, she started dating someone new. Mom was excited about this new relationship and wanted everything to be perfect. She started insisting that we all act a certain way in front of her new boyfriend. She wanted us to be this picture-perfect family, as if we'd all magically forget about Dad and his struggles. It was a lot of pressure. She'd constantly remind me to smile, to act happy, to be on my best behavior whenever her boyfriend was around. It felt like she was more concerned about making a good impression than actually dealing with the emotions we were all going through. I tried to go along with it for a while, but the facade was wearing thin. I was still grieving, and it felt like she was asking me to put on a mask and pretend everything was okay. One day, I finally snapped. I told her that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine and that her expectations were unrealistic given what we'd been through. I still had not forgiven her for how she treated my dad, and I needed to be honest about my feelings and not have to hide them for the sake of appearances. Mom didn't take it well. She got really upset and told me I was being selfish and ungrateful. It was one of those moments where you realize that no matter how much you want to be understood, sometimes people just aren't ready or willing to listen. After that argument, things changed drastically. Mom started excluding me from family events and gatherings. It felt like she was punishing me for not playing along with the image she was trying to create. She'd still see me occasionally, but it was clear that our relationship was strained. It was like she had drawn a line in the sand, and I was on the wrong side of it. Things got even worse when I found out from my brother that Mom was engaged. It was a bit of a shock because I hadn't heard anything directly from her. We hadn't really been in touch much. Our conversations were sporadic and often awkward. I wasn't sure how to approach her, so I decided to reach out the best way I knew how. I sent her a congratulatory text. It was short and to the point. "Hey Mom, I heard about your engagement. Congratulations. I hope you're happy." I figured that was a nice gesture, just trying to be supportive and bridge the gap, even though it felt like we were miles apart. But here's the kicker. She didn't respond. Not a word. I didn't know what to make of it. Part of me felt hurt and confused, but I also knew that our relationship was rocky, and maybe she was just dealing with her own stuff. I tried to brush it off, but it lingered in the back of my mind. Then, my brother filled me in on something that completely knocked me for a loop. He told me that during the rehearsal dinner for Mom's wedding, she made a pretty big announcement. Apparently, she had talked about why I hadn't been invited to the wedding, and let me tell you, it was brutal. According to my brother, Mom had said in front of everyone, "The reason my name isn't here is because she's problematic and mentally unstable. Like dad. Like daughter." Those words cut deep. I was already struggling with my feelings about the whole situation, and hearing that Mom had labeled me so harshly in front of her new family and friends was a gut punch. It felt like she was publicly distancing herself from me and using me as a scapegoat for her own choices. It was like she was trying to make me the villain in her story, and I couldn't help but feel crushed by it. It was hard to process the fact that she was using my mental health struggles as a reason to justify not including me in her life. It was like everything I had been through and the pain I had felt was being used against me. I felt invalidated and less important, like my own struggles were being twisted to make her look better or to fit a narrative she was trying to create. That's when I started hatching a plan. I'd always been a bit of a hothead when it came to dealing with my emotions, and in my mind, this was a chance to make a statement. I knew it wasn't healthy or productive, but at that moment, it felt like the only way to make myself heard. My idea was to show up at Mom's wedding reception and make a dramatic statement. Here's the thing. I had access to something that might make an impact. After Dad died, I'd been going through his old things, trying to sort through his belongings and find some sense of connection. Among his stuff, I found a collection of diaries. These weren't just random scribbles. They were detailed accounts of his life, his thoughts, and his struggles. I read through them and it was eye-opening. Dad had written extensively about how Mom treated him poorly throughout their marriage, how she was critical and dismissive, and how it had affected him deeply. There were hundreds of pages detailing his emotional pain and the difficulties he faced. I wasn't sure what to do with these diaries at first. Part of me wanted to keep them as a way to remember Dad and honor his memory. But as I read through them and saw just how much he had endured, I felt this surge of anger. It seemed like an injustice that Mom was moving on so quickly and seemingly without any acknowledgement of the damage she had caused. I thought that maybe sharing some of Dad's own words might shed light on the reality of their relationship and make people see a different side of the story. So, I made the decision. I was going to crash Mom's wedding reception and make a statement. I knew it was drastic, but I felt like I needed to do something to be heard. I wanted to confront the public facade she had built and let people see what was really going on behind closed doors. The day of the wedding arrived, and I showed up at the venue. It was surreal walking into the reception hall, knowing that I was about to stir things up. I could see Mom and her new husband greeting guests, and everything looked like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. The decorations were beautiful, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. But for me, it was all just a mask for what I was about to reveal. I found a moment when there was a lull in the festivities. I waited until people were gathered around and the mood was a bit relaxed. Then I grabbed the microphone. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I was determined. I cleared my throat and said, "Excuse me, everyone. I know this is a joyous occasion, but I need to say a few words." The room fell silent, and I could feel the eyes on me. I took a deep breath and began reading excerpts from Dad's diaries. I chose parts where he talked about his struggles with Mom's behavior and how he felt belittled and emotionally drained. I read about the harsh words she used, the demands she placed on him, and the deep emotional toll it had taken. It wasn't just about airing dirty laundry. It was about showing the reality behind the marriage. As I read, I could see the shock on people's faces. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were visibly upset. Mom's face was a mixture of disbelief and anger. Her new husband looked bewildered, and I could see him trying to process what was happening. The room's atmosphere shifted from celebratory to tense and heavy. Mom eventually came up to the microphone and tried to stop me, but I wasn't done. I felt like I needed to finish what I started. I kept reading, trying to convey the depth of Dad's pain and how it had affected our family. I wanted people to understand that there was more to the story than what Mom had presented. After I finally finished, I handed the microphone back and walked out. I didn't stick around to see the aftermath. I knew I'd stirred up a lot of emotions, and I didn't want to be there for the fallout. I just needed to get away and process everything. In the days following, I was flooded with messages and calls. Some were from people who were sympathetic. Others were from people who were angry or confused. Mom didn't reach out to me directly, but I heard through my brother and some mutual acquaintances that she was furious. She felt like I had completely disrespected her special day, and she was also deeply hurt by the public exposure of her past behavior. However, things were far from done. After the whole fiasco at Mom's wedding reception, I was mentally and emotionally drained. I felt like I made a mess of things, and I needed some space to figure out what to do next. So, I decided to block Mom's number and her social media accounts. I figured that if she needed to reach me, she'd find a way, but for now, I couldn't handle any more drama. A week went by, and I was trying to get back to some semblance of normalcy. I was deep into a new project at work and focusing on self-care. I wasn't expecting any news from Mom. If anything, I was bracing myself for a lot of anger and blame. So, it came as a shock when my brother called me one afternoon, sounding a bit frazzled. "Hey, I don't know if you've heard, but Mom's marriage ended," he said, almost as if he couldn't believe what he was telling me. I was stunned. "Wait, what? Mark left Mom? How?" My brother didn't have all the details, but from what he gathered, it was pretty sudden. Apparently, Mark had moved out just a few months into their marriage. My brother didn't know the exact reasons behind the split, but he mentioned hearing some vague things about disagreements and mounting tensions. From what I could piece together, it sounded like things fell apart quickly, which made me wonder if Mom's new relationship was as ideal as she'd made it out to be. "Do you know if Mom's okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned, despite everything that had happened. My brother wasn't sure. He said Mom was putting on a brave face and trying to act like everything was fine, but he could tell she was struggling. It was clear that she was in a tough spot, and it made me think about how much pain she might be in right now. Even though I was still hurt by how she treated me, I didn't want to see her suffering. After the call, I sat there for a while, trying to process the news. Part of me felt a sense of vindication, like maybe this was some kind of cosmic payback for everything that had happened. But another part of me felt a pang of sympathy. It was clear that Mom was dealing with a lot, and as much as I'd been hurt by her actions, I knew what it was like to struggle with the fallout of failed relationships. I didn't reach out to Mom. It was a complicated mix of emotions. On one hand, I wanted to be there for her. But on the other hand, I didn't want to make things worse by bringing up old conflicts or reopening wounds. Plus, I wasn't sure how she'd react after everything that happened at the wedding. I was still blocked from her social media and didn't have her number unblocked yet. However, I didn't have to wonder for long. Last night, she showed up at my door completely unannounced and in a state that was far from ideal. I was in the middle of watching a movie when I heard banging on my front door. It was late, and my first thought was that it must be a mistake or a prank. But the knocking continued, and it quickly turned into a loud, persistent banging. I opened the door, and there she was, Mom, stumbling around and clearly drunk out of her mind. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were rumpled, and she reeked of alcohol. I could smell the booze from a good 5 feet away. She was making a scene in the hallway, shouting and sobbing, her words coming out in a slurry mess. "Why'd you do this to me? Why'd you have to ruin everything?" she yelled, her voice echoing through the hallway. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. It was a far cry from the composed persona she tried to project during her wedding and subsequent marriage. I knew I couldn't just leave her out there, not only because she was creating a disturbance, but also because she looked like she needed help. I sighed and let her in, hoping she'd calm down once she was inside. I led her into the living room and tried to get her to sit down. "Mom, you need to calm down," I said, trying to keep my own frustration in check. "What's going on? Why are you so upset?" She ignored my questions and continued to rant, her accusations bouncing off the walls. "You ruined everything. I thought you were going to make things right, but all you did was make it worse. Mark left me because of you." The more she yelled, the more I realized how drunk she actually was. Her speech was incoherent, and she kept repeating the same phrases over and over. It was exhausting to listen to, but I tried to be patient. Despite everything that had happened, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was clearly in a lot of pain. Eventually, her yelling turned into a slow, muffled sobbing. Her energy seemed to drain, and she sank to the floor, curling up like a child. Within minutes, she was passed out cold, snoring loudly on my living room carpet. I looked at her lying there, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me was angry. Angry at the way she'd come to my home and treated me, and angry at the whole situation in general. Another part of me felt pity. Seeing her like this, so vulnerable and broken, was a harsh reminder that she was human, too, and she was struggling in her own way. I decided it was best to just leave her where she was. I didn't have the emotional energy to deal with her right then. I grabbed a blanket from the closet and draped it over her, then went to my bedroom and shut the door. I needed to get some sleep myself, and I couldn't handle any more of the drama at that moment. The next morning, I woke up to find that Mom was still there, sleeping soundly on my floor. I could hear her faintly stirring as I made my way to the kitchen. I wasn't sure how to handle the situation. Part of me wanted to just let her wake up on her own and figure things out, but I also knew that ignoring her wasn't really an option. I made some coffee and tried to gather my thoughts. I had no idea how she'd react when she woke up, whether she'd be embarrassed, angry, or even apologetic. I just hoped that maybe after sleeping off the alcohol, she'd be more open to having a real conversation. However, by the time I got back to the living room after making coffee, she had already left. The blanket was still there, crumpled on the floor, and the remnants of her outburst were evident in the scattered tissues and empty coffee cup. I felt a pang of guilt as I looked around at the mess she'd left behind. It was clear that she had been in a rough place, and seeing her like that made me question whether I had been too harsh with my dramatic entrance at her wedding reception. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. I replayed the scene at the reception over and over in my head, questioning if I had crossed a line. Was it really fair of me to expose her personal struggles in such a public way? Sure, I felt she needed to understand the impact of her actions, but was there a better way to handle it? I would love to hear your suggestions. Update 1. Hi guys, some of you asked for what was in my dad's diary. I am not going to share everything, but here are a few excerpts. Here's what he wrote on March 12, 2005. She told me again that I'm weak and useless. She said she regrets ever marrying me. I don't know how much longer I can take this. June 18, 2007. She laughed at me when I told her about my anxiety attack. She said I'm just looking for attention. I feel so alone. December 24, 2008. Christmas is supposed to be a happy time, but all she does is criticize me. She said I'm ruining the holidays for everyone. I just want to disappear. Reading these always breaks my heart. I hope that any one of you who is dealing with the same thing finds the strength to be better. Update 2. Hi guys, as per your suggestions, I did try reaching out to my mom, but she hasn't responded. It's been a few weeks since I sent her that letter, and I haven't heard a peep from her. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, given how things went down. I figured she might need some time and space. However, I did get some insight into what happened between my mom and Mark from my brother, and it's definitely adding another layer to this already complicated situation. So, my brother filled me in on some of the details about why Mark left Mom so abruptly. Apparently, Mark has a younger brother who has been battling depression for quite some time. It's a tough situation, and it's clear that Mark's family has had their share of struggles. According to my brother, just a couple of days after the wedding, Mark's brother somehow found out that Mom had been bad-mouthing him and making fun of his depression. Yeah, you heard that right. My mom apparently had a pretty cruel side that I hadn't seen before. Mark's brother had been struggling with his own mental health issues, and the fact that Mom was making fun of him behind his back was a big deal. It wasn't just idle gossip. She was apparently really harsh and dismissive about his struggles, which is obviously a big red flag for anyone who's sensitive about mental health. When my brother told me this, I felt a mix of shock and understanding. On one hand, it was appalling to hear that my mom could be so callous about something as serious as someone's mental health. On the other hand, it also kind of made sense why Mark would be so quick to end the marriage if he found out that his new wife was being disrespectful and hurtful toward his own family. It's not exactly something you'd want to ignore. I was trying to make sense of all this when my brother suggested that we should try to find out more about Mark's brother and maybe reach out to him. He mentioned that it might be worth understanding how he was doing and if there was any way to make amends or at least offer an apology on Mom's behalf. It felt like a long shot, but I agreed that it might be a good idea to try and mend some of the bridges that had been burned. We managed to track down Mark's brother through some mutual connections, and after some careful consideration, I decided to reach out. I wanted to approach the situation delicately, knowing that he had every right to be angry and hurt. I sent him a message explaining who I was and acknowledging that I was aware of the situation. I apologized for what Mom had said and done, even though I wasn't directly responsible. I also expressed my hope that he was getting the support he needed and that I genuinely wished him well. To my surprise, he responded. He was understandably cautious but appreciated the gesture. We had a few exchanges where he explained a bit more about how he was coping and how he had felt hurt by Mom's comments. He also mentioned that he was in therapy and working on his mental health, which was a relief to hear. It was a small step toward making things right, and while I knew it wouldn't fix everything, it felt like a start. Update 3. Hi everyone. I know it's only been a few days since my last update, but things have taken some more twists and turns. So here's the latest. My brother has been trying really hard to reach out to Mom, hoping to patch things up or at least get some clarity on where things stand. Unfortunately, things haven't gone as smoothly as we'd hoped. A few days ago, my brother decided to make another attempt to see Mom. He thought maybe some time had passed and she might be more open to talking things through. He showed up at her place, hoping to have a calm conversation and maybe start rebuilding some bridges. But when he arrived, she refused to even let him in. She slammed the door in his face, and from what he described, it was pretty harsh. It felt like a punch in the gut, especially since he was only trying to be there for her and figure out a way forward. That wasn't the end of it, though. A couple of days later, my brother tried to check in again, thinking that maybe things had cooled down a bit. He knocked on her door and tried calling her, but she wasn't answering. It was really unlike her to be so unreachable, especially considering she's usually pretty responsive. After a lot of calls and searching, he eventually discovered that Mom had left town to visit her sister. Mom had apparently told my brother to stop bothering her and to leave her alone. She made it clear that she didn't want to talk to him, or by extension, to anyone from our side of the family. It was a tough blow, and I felt a pang of sympathy for my brother. He was just trying to reach out and maybe mend things, but it seemed like Mom was shutting everyone out entirely. Hearing this news left me feeling conflicted. On one hand, I understood that Mom was probably overwhelmed and struggling with her own emotions. It must be incredibly hard for her to face everything that's happened and to deal with the fallout of her actions. On the other hand, it was frustrating and disheartening to see her isolating herself and refusing to address the issues. It felt like she was avoiding the very conversations that needed to happen for any kind of healing to occur. My brother and I talked about it, and he shared how disheartened he felt. He genuinely wanted to help and offer support, but Mom's refusal to engage made him feel like his efforts were in vain. It's hard when you're trying to reach out to someone and they just push you away. He mentioned that he was considering giving her more space for now, hoping that maybe she'd come around when she was ready. But it's a tough call, and he's unsure of the best approach. Thanks for reading and for all the support and advice you've given so far. I am grateful for it. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Caught my wife cheating with our neighbor in the house we just bought. Now I'm a single dad living off-grid on our farm. My wife, 26 female, and I, 29 male, got married and rented our first apartment for 5 years. We bought our first house when our child was a year and a half old. It was a farmhouse that was in foreclosure. The previous owner had split it into a duplex due to the financial hardships they faced. There was another couple living in half of the house when we first moved in. They had 90 days left to vacate. We didn't get to meet or see them at first, but the reality agent told me they homeschooled their kids and lived here for years. Everything was blissful at first. My wife helped me to start unpacking and settling into our new home together. Even our little boy helped us to carry in his toys one at a time. We could finally own animals, so within the first month we got a horse, cow, and chickens. The 3 of us spent time with our animals. My wife and I took turns riding the horse with our son. While we were out enjoying one of the last days I had off work, something caught my wife's eye. I matched her gaze and saw a very healthy-looking man. He was making chopping firewood look easy. I assumed he was our neighbor, but even though he saw us, he didn't say anything. I wondered if he was bitter with me for buying the house that he had been renting for his wife and children for so long. I wondered if they had found a new home or if they were desperate to stay where they were. I was a nice man, and if they wanted to introduce themselves, they could. My wife was still staring at him, so I told her to stop. She blushed. I thought about introducing us, but I just wanted my wife to stay away from Mr. Woodchop. While I was at work the next week, my wife told me she got to hang out with the neighbor for a bit. I asked her which caught her off guard for some reason. She admitted it was Mr. Poultier while Mrs. Poultier was upstairs taking a nap with her kids. She always napped at the same time every day because her medicine exhausted her. I was uncomfortable, and she looked embarrassed. I asked what they did, and she said they just played cards and talked about the benefits of living in the countryside. I thought it was weird, and I told her not to spend time with him alone. She rolled her eyes, smiled, and told me not to worry. I asked her if she thought it was funny to spend time alone with another married man. She put her serious face on, but I felt like she was pleased that I was jealous. She told me I needed to trust her and that she would never cheat on me. I told her I didn't want her to spend time with him alone. She agreed, but only because she saw how upset I was getting. I didn't believe for 1 second that she understood my reasoning behind it. She denied any wrongdoing. I was off work unexpectedly one day a week after my wife hung out with the neighbor. I answered a knock at the door. My wife tried to tell me she would answer it, but I was closer, so I answered it. It was Mr. Poultier with a bouquet of flowers. I took them, confused. He stammered to explain that they were a goodbye gift from his wife. My wife accepted them, looking quite embarrassed. I told him it was nice to finally meet him, and I introduced myself as my wife's husband, putting my arm around her shoulders and squeezing. She was bright red, staring at the flower petals. Mr. Poultier swallowed hard and wished us a good evening before fleeing. I put my wife on the spot by asking her why he brought her flowers. She stammered, saying she didn't know why. I told her I didn't believe they were from Mrs. Poultier, and she had the nerve to tell me that I was overreacting and thinking too hard about this. She wanted me to drop it and reminded me that I had to work the next day. I was officially suspicious that something was happening between my wife and the neighbor. I installed cameras inside and outside of our house that night, refusing to go to bed until I was done. My wife hated this. She asked me if they would take up all of our solar power, and I said no. She asked me if someone could hack into our camera feed, and I said no. She asked if I could watch her remotely, and I said yes, I got a live feed from it on my phone. She seemed very displeased for some reason but tried to recover by saying it made her feel safer. I started watching my wife while I worked for a week and a half. Nothing interesting happened, and I just found it nice to be able to check in on my wife and son while I worked. I started to check the live camera feed less often. Weeks later, I decided to check the feed while I ate lunch. My son was sleeping in his crib while my wife was typing on her phone. She set it down, took a pie out of the oven, and headed next door with a big smile on her face. She was let inside quickly. She was on their side of the house for a while. I could not believe it. When I got home, I asked her what she did, and she said she talked to Mrs. Poultier about homeschooling. I didn't believe her. I went next door despite my wife trying to say that Mrs. Poultier was sleeping now. I thought it was weird that she was trying to tell me she was sleeping. I knocked on the door and was greeted by Mr. Poultier. I asked to speak with Mrs. Poultier so I could corroborate my wife's story. He was immediately defensive and said I didn't need to speak to his wife. I could just speak to him. I decided to jump in full force and tell him I knew he was sleeping with my wife. It was like he was surprised I said it but had a planned defense. He smiled nervously and said that was an unfair accusation. That's when his wife started coming down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. She asked what was going on. I asked her if she spoke to my wife earlier in the day, but her husband yelled over me, saying he already answered my question. Then he slammed the door in my face. I heard them yelling inside, but no one came outside to talk to me. I slept on the couch that night, unsure of what to do. My wife only maintained the same story she told me before for a few days. Nothing interesting happened. I would check the camera feed at work and my wife was at home. Then, when I least expected it, my wife went back over to their house at the same time as before, this time with cookies. She was inside for 30 minutes before I decided to go home and see what was happening. I figured since I own the house now, I could get away with opening their front door. As soon as I did, I saw my wife and Mr. Poultier having sex on their couch. My wife wailed, "No!" and started crying immediately, just as quickly as she started trying to put her clothes back on. Mr. Poultier was frantically trying to dress, too, furious with me for opening his front door. The yelling and crying and my claiming to be right all along caused Mrs. Poultier to wake up and come downstairs with the kids. They weren't fully dressed yet, so she immediately assumed the worst. I told her I just caught them having sex, which really sent her into a spiral of grief. She accused him of breaking vows, breaking her heart, breaking her trust, and breaking apart the family. The kids started crying due to the stress of the situation. We both kicked out our spouses despite their lies, objections, and grief. My wife tried to say it was a stupid mistake, blaming the temptation of having another man right next door instead of taking accountability for the fact that she cheated on me, her loving, loyal husband and provider. I screamed it in her face. I told her she cheated on me. Since she was having trouble accepting this truth, I told her I wouldn't allow myself to be disrespected in such a way, and I wouldn't call her my wife ever again. In the midst of the yelling and sadness, I ushered her back to our side of the house and forced her to pack her clothes. She was mortified. She didn't want to leave the place we just bought and called home. She didn't want to leave our son and didn't know where she would go. I told her Mr. Poultier should take care of her since whatever they had was more important than 2 long-term marriages with children. She sobbed, shaking her head, admitting that the affair wasn't as valuable as maintaining a happy and successful marriage. She begged me for forgiveness, just one more chance to be my wife and have the family and life we expected to have. I told her that life and expectation was gone. The love was too. I didn't want to love her because she chose to love another man. My wife was a shaking, sobbing mess when she left at the same time as Mr. Poultier, with her car packed. It was a terrible, life-altering moment to see her drive away, knowing it was within my power to stop her from leaving. Weeks later, my wife had called twice to talk to our son but never told me where she was or what plan she'd come up with. Mr. Poultier's ex-wife and I found out that they moved into an apartment together out of state. I was really surprised that neither of them showed up to the court hearings, not even for custody. It was like they encouraged each other not to care. They didn't try to get custody or even visitation. Just before the 90-day limit was up, I agreed to let her and her kids stay on a yearly lease for less rent per month. Now, I'm proud to say I live a completely self-sufficient life off the grid with my kids on our farm. Our exes split less than 2 years after moving in together, after losing all legal rights to their children. Now on to the next story. Story 11. 18-year-old niece announced her engagement to a 36-year-old man who started dating her when she was 17. When I called him a predator, my entire family said I was jealous. I, 33M, have a pretty big age difference with my brother, 44M. He had a child at 25, which means that I became an uncle at 14. Because we were pretty close in age, I formed a special bond with my niece, Ella, now 18F. When she was 16, my brother and his family moved away, so I've been seeing them less recently, but we keep in touch and catch up at family events. Last year at Christmas, my niece told me that she had a boyfriend and told me a bit about him, but I didn't know the guy. He was invited for Easter and a couple of other events but was never able to make it. When we were planning our mother's birthday, my brother decided to invite Ella's boyfriend so that we could all meet him. Yesterday was the birthday. I was looking forward to meeting Mark, Ella's boyfriend, but was very confused when I saw her walk in with a man that looked double her age. Spoiler alert. He is. She introduced him to me, and I politely smiled but was deep down very concerned. I went to my brother to ask how old Mark was, and he told me that Mark is 36, so literally double Ella's age. She had told me that he was a bit older, but I assumed like early to mid-20s, not almost 40. That's when they called us in the living room to share exciting news. Ella showed us a ring and revealed that they were engaged. I just said, "What the hell?" And everyone turned around and looked at me like I was crazy. I told them that they were out of their minds if they thought this was normal, that there was no world in which a 30-something should date an 18-year-old, and that she shouldn't be getting married. All of them accused me of ruining Ella's happiness. Some even said that I was jealous of Mark, which is so disgusting, I can't even explain it. I mean, I'm younger than Mark, but never in a million years would I ever consider dating someone younger than 25. They told me that it was perfectly legal, as they were both adults, which isn't true, because they've been dating for a year, and Ella turned 18 7 months ago, and that if they were happy, that's all that matters. I told them that they were sick for allowing this and that he was a predator, but they wouldn't listen. I know this isn't my business, but I can't help but fear for Ella. She is young and doesn't really know what she's getting into. I'm really scared of her getting married and being unable to leave him when she realizes how sick it was. I then left and slammed the door, and I've been receiving pretty wild messages and calls since then. I don't know if I was wrong for this and I'm just overreacting, and if I wasn't wrong, I don't know what I can do to make them realize how wrong it is. Update 1. November 9th, 2024. So I've taken the past 24 hours to really reflect on all of this. I tried to take in most of the advice in the comments, and here's what I have decided. I don't think that me telling her and everyone that the relationship is weird was wrong. I do, however, think that I did it wrong, and it was pretty harsh because it was in the heat of the moment. But I still find this very creepy and don't think she should get married. What I've decided to do is, 1. Apologize to her. I sent her a text saying I was sorry for my outburst and that I should have thought it through beforehand. I told her that I never wanted to make her feel like I didn't want her to be happy, and that I loved her very much and had her best interests in mind. 2. Ask her if we could talk about this. I asked if she would be okay and free to hang out and maybe get coffee this week to talk about all of this with a clear head. I really want to try and get her to see why it's weird and that maybe marrying him is not a great choice. 3. Explain myself to my brother. I sent him a text saying that I was sorry for the way I said it, but that I still thought that it needed to be said. I explained to him why I think Mark is a predator and this relationship could have a very negative and damaging impact on Ella. I'm still waiting on their replies. I'll update when they reply or when I see Ella if she accepts, depending on how long it would take. In the meantime, I really want to thank everyone who gave me advice and was constructive and really tried to help my niece out of this situation. I also send my best to all of the people in the comments sharing similar stories when they were the teenager getting groomed. I'm so sorry this happened to you, and I really hope you're doing better now. Update 2. November 12th, 2024. So, following my text, see last post, Ella replied and told me she agreed to meet with me and talk. I just came back from seeing her. Here's how it went. She asked me what I wanted to tell her, and I started explaining that I didn't think her relationship was very healthy and that no older guy should want to date a teenager. I told her that she was an incredible woman, so I wasn't saying it was weird that someone would want to marry her, but that guys my age normally shouldn't even look at a teenager. She wasn't convinced and said that sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's okay. I asked her how she would feel if I told her that someone born today could be her future partner, and she said it felt really weird. I also asked her if she would consider dating someone younger than 15, and she said no. I could see her starting to realize that Mark maybe didn't have the best intentions. I also asked her if she knew about his previous relationship, and she said vaguely and just told me the girl's name. I asked her if she knew how old the girl was, and she said she was 21. I also asked her if she knew that their relationships overlapped, and she said that Mark always told her he was single since they met, but she kind of felt like that wasn't true. I told her that since his previous girlfriend was also significantly younger, it seemed like he had a thing for younger girls, which is kind of weird. After discussing that, she told me a bit more about her relationship. She told me she was starting to feel weird about it because of Mark's recent behavior. I asked what she meant, and she said that he had been flirting with a lot of girls who were all also younger, including some of Ella's friends. When she confronted him, he sort of gaslit her into thinking it wasn't flirting. He was also making a lot of comments about having children with Ella and how cute it would be to see her raise them. She told me she was absolutely not ready for that and also wanted to go to college and work and not be a mom. Because of all of that, she was doubting her relationship, and I told her that I understood. She said she was scared of breaking up with him because he had become her whole life recently, and she didn't know what she would do without him. I told her that she was surrounded by people who loved her and would be there for her, and that she was a lot more than just Mark's girlfriend. I said that she knew my opinion on it, but that ultimately the choice was hers and that I just wanted her to be happy. I also said I would be there for her no matter what. She told me that she will try to break up with him this week, and she'll let me know how it goes. I'll edit this post if I have more info. Also, again, thank you to everyone who gave advice and tried to help us. I really appreciate it. Edit. Okay, so I just want to say some people in the comments seem to think that this is fake, and you know what, I can understand and I don't really care. I'm not asking you to believe that my life is real or fake. And it's great that you don't just believe everything you see online. But I just want to say this. There are hundreds of people on here or elsewhere that share similar stories. I'm not really affected by people thinking I'm lying, mainly because I'm not the one in that situation, but some people might be. Some people come on here to share something that might have traumatized them, and the last thing they want is for others to think they're lying. So, if you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but the next time keep that to yourself because it might make other people feel really bad. Additional info. OP clarifies details regarding the BF's previous relationship prior to current one with Ella. To explain this in more details, I went through the guy's socials with my friends a few days ago because we thought there might be other weird things going on, and we ended up finding info about his previous relationship, the one right before Ella. So Ella told me at Christmas, so December 24th, that they had been dating for a few months, but when we searched his Facebook, we saw a post wishing happy birthday to a girl who he called his baby on December 12th. And this girl appeared in other posts where they were kissing or he was calling her a pet name, so we assumed she was his GF, which Ella confirmed afterwards. And this girl also looked very young. He had at one point wrote something about her and said, as soon as you're done with college. So we knew she was in college and she looked between 20 and 25. And Ella then confirmed that she was 21. But yeah, basically, it seemed like he was still with his ex while dating Ella, so I asked her if she knew about that. OP should be prepared to support his niece if she chooses to break up with her BF and distance himself from the family if they are blaming OP for Ella's breakup. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if she ends up breaking up with him, which I hope, her dad will blame me for it, which is the last thing she'll need if she manages to get out of that relationship. I will gladly take the blame, but I'm just scared she'll feel guilty about it and blame herself if she sees that her dad is mad at me. She's a very empathetic kid, which is a really great quality. But sometimes she hurts herself because of it. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.